Hello there, Middle Earth Strategy Battle Gamers. So we're here today with a tournament review. I'm here with Jason and Dan.
Howdy.
Hey, hey guys, what's going on?
So Jason hosted a tournament called Great Battles of the Carolinas.
Version 3.0.
Yeah, version 3.0. It was a 1,000-point event, and it was May 5th?
4th.
Fourth.
May 4th. Yep,
May
this
4th.
past Saturday.
May 4th.
From our record date.
May 4th, 1,000-point event. It was 3 rounds, 2-hour rounds. It was a load of fun. Jason did an excellent job hosting it.
2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. Seemed like 2 hours.
It
yeah,
does sometimes,
so how'd you guys think the event went?
Well, I felt like the event actually was my favorite event I've been to in recent years, probably.
Okay.
I mean, so not only did I TO, but I ended up playing in this one because of a couple dropouts. And honestly, I have to agree with Dan. From a TO's perspective, it was probably one of the best run events I've ever done. And then from a player's perspective, it was probably the most fun event that I've ever participated in. So combining the two together, I'm only going to be speaking about how my event went as a player in this video.
Mhm.
I'm going to cover about it from a TO's perspective on my own channel. But from
Okay.
a player's perspective, I thought it was a hell of a good time.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. All 3 of my games took me to the edge in terms of I didn't have any games where I could say, oh yeah, that was an absolute barn burner on my
Especially that
side.
second round, right?
Well, yeah, second round. Honestly, round 3 and round 1. I mean, all 3 of them were just. I can't say that I went in there and got huge. I mean, I got pretty big victory points, but we'll cover that. But yeah, all 3 of my opponents were great. I mean, very close games. It was honestly probably the closest games I've had in a tournament, like ever, maybe.
So the advantage of having the TO who's also talking about how his event went, I can actually tell you guys your scores if you have forgotten what they were, as well as your opponents and what they were playing. So, I have the inside information.
Insider information. Okay, so why don't we start off and we'll review round 1.
Well, we should talk about what we played too, real quick.
Oh yeah. So I played a Rohan, Riders of Theoden, Legendary Legion. I had Theoden. I had all 6 of the named heroes. I had Theoden, Aemir, Dernhelm, Darrowwine, Elfhelm, and Gambling with the Banner. And then I had 12 Royal Guard with throwing spears, and 3 riders with throwing spears. I think I had 12 riders total.
That sounds about right. So you had 6 heroes, and you had 34 models total. So whatever wasn't a hero and whatever wasn't Royal Guard was a rider.
Yeah, it was a rider, and I did have 3 of them with throwing spears for sure. But yeah. So that was my list.
Do you want me to do mine next, Jason?
Go for it, Danny boy.
Okay, so after years of trying to be too clever for my own good, I went back to the army that I enjoy playing. The reason I got into the game in the first place, played Gondor or Minas Tirith with Elisar, and I took Faramir and Elisar. I was taking them together, and decided to take Angborn.
Yep, Angborn.
Decided to take him for some shooting dynamics. Decided to take the Trebuchet, upgraded with extra crew guy just in case somebody gets shot. so I had enough bodies, and I had 7 points, so might as well, right?
Smart play too. I mean, at 1,000 points, it doesn't hurt to throw an extra guy on there.
And then lastly, I took Emerhill, leading a detachment of Swan Knights. 5 Swan Knights upgraded with lances, horses. I think they come with shields, but
Yes.
and Also, I took 5 Minister with Warriors, both Faramir's Warband and Aragorn's Warband. Each of them had 3 Fountain Court Guards upgraded with shields. And then they had 4 Rangers upgraded with spears. Angborn had 3 Warriors Minister with shield, 2 with spear, and then 1 without a spear. He was just with a regular Ranger.
Okay.
So that was my
Sounds like a pretty
army.
Very solid army.
Yeah, actually, so the theme behind it is I made Imrahil my leader because not only play wise, I can just throw LSR in and not care a thing in the world if he gets wounded or killed for that matter. But it gave me the confidence to. It actually affected my mental game. Knowing that he's not my leader, so I was a little bit more, I wouldn't say reckless, but he was definitely headhunting a little bit more this tournament than he normally does.
You can make some more aggressive plays with him as opposed to being more conservative with it.
Exactly. And this actually worked out in the lore because when before LSR actually became LSR, and it was right after the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, Imrahil was actually kind of in charge. Yeah, because Faramir was incapacitated.
He was the standing steward because of the death of Denethor.
Yep. So, and then Joe took Rohan, and we were a team. So we were kind of doing that timeline, that small timeline in the Return of the King. Anyway.
Yep.
Well,
Jason.
I think it's funny that you guys both took factions that you are most, comfortable and confident playing with, as well as being the 2 most well-known factions. So Dan and Joe, like I said, they were a team. I had a partner of my own, and I ended up taking an army that was a combination of their 2. I played Minas Tirith allied with Rohan, and I also took Aragorn LSR, but I took Huron. My thought process being similar to Dan's, in that Huron, as long as I can kind of keep him alive, babysit him a little bit with other heroes, other units, I can be reckless with Aragorn because keep Huron alive. If Aragorn dies, I negate victory points, and that was very much obvious in how I played him. I was pretty reckless with him. I wasn't obviously throwing him in situations where he wasn't going to survive, but it was like, oh, hey, I could make a really good play right now with Aragorn that could be really risky if it goes bad for me. Oh, but Huron's alive. Let's do it. So I had Aragorn. I had Huron. Each one was leading 5 mounted knights of Minas Tirith with shield. And then my Rohan contingent was Théoden, Éomer, Durnhelm, 7 Royal Guard, 2 of them with Throwing Spear and Théoden's Warband, and then 5 Riders in Éomer's and 4 Riders in Durnhelm's. So I had a 32 model, all-mounted army.
Yeah, so it's funny because all 3 of us basically played we played very similar armies and kind of builds to each other. I mean, Dan, of course, had fiefdoms with Gondor, but he also had LSR. I had Rohan with Théoden, full complement of Royal Guard, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you and me both had. So in my army alone, I had 4 similar heroes to you guys: Aragorn from Dan, and then Théoden, Durnhelm, and Éomer from yourself. So funny how we all have similar thought processes when it comes to heroes for good.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one thing maybe I'd like to talk about later on. But so you guys want to start covering round 1?
Round 1, let's do it.
All right, who wants to go first?
You got the lead, Joe.
I'll go
for it. Oh,
yeah,
Dan,
go ahead, Joe.
No, go ahead, Dan. Go, Dan.
So, round 1.
Yep.
We were playing objective scenarios.
Maelstrom.
Oh yeah, sorry, Maelstrom scenarios, which I actually was not looking forward to. And I versed Ashley, who was playing Mordor.
Mm.
2 Troll Chieftains, Sauron, and I think that's it.
Oh, Barad-dûr.
Yep, specifically Barad-dûr. Yep.
Okay. And we rolled for the game type, or we rolled to see who could eliminate which scenario.
Yep, we were doing
And
the veto system, just for those who didn't know.
Yep, the veto.
She eliminated. Actually, I eliminated heirlooms because I cannot stand that scenario. Actually, I think she actually vetoed that one, and then I vetoed hold ground because the thought it was I do not want to be in a confined space with Sauron. So I'd rather have my army.
That's a good thought.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have my army kind of more spread out, and this army was designed to be a little bit more sustainable. Honestly, all my games, all my heroes kind of were able to work independently, and they didn't need to have like, for example, like I've been playing Lake Town. As soon as Bard leaves, that's game over. As soon as he leaves his troops. But this army, all the heroes could operate somewhat independently, and so that was the goal. Was I was going to spread out and cut her off. We were playing on the was that the Asciliath board? Was that the one in the library?
Yep, that's the newest board. I think Joe and I did a live stream battle report on it, but it's now at its final peak. So yeah, you guys played on Asciliath.
Yeah, actually, this battle is actually going to be a video on Jason's channel eventually.
That is correct. It is being worked on now.
It was filmed, so if you guys are interested in going to watch it, I'd suggest going to his channel and watching that. It's actually a really fun battle. Anyway, so what I did throughout the tournament was I deployed my trebuchet first. Actually, no, my trebuchet had to start on the field because there was Maelstrom. So it started on the board. We rolled pretty good for the Maelstrom scenarios. I think all of our warbands came on, and actually I rolled like 2 6s, a 6 for Aragorn. No, I rolled a 6 for Aragorn, and then a 5 for Emerhill. So I was literally able to surround one of the troll chieftains who was kind of by his lonesome that was the east side of the board edge.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to surround the troll chieftain by himself on the east side of the board edge.
That's pretty good to get both your big hitters in together.
Oh yeah, and this is Emerhill and Aragorn are really well together, as we'll see later on.
Very much so.
Faramir deployed. I rolled a 2, and she picked for me to deploy on my board edge, kind of close to the trebuchet. And then I think the same thing with Angborn. I deployed him on the south side of the board edge. So turn 1, shooting. Not much went on. Although turn 1 shooting, she was able to throw a rock onto Emerhill and knock him off his horse.
Are you serious?
For the second turn of the game, yeah. I was like, I'm so excited to use Emerhill. Oh yeah, this is gonna be awesome. And then just gets knocked off his horse.
Wow.
Killed his horse. I was like, well, that kind of sucks. So turn 2. I was able to pretty much charge everybody because Aragorn came from behind the Troll's warband. The Troll was in front leading the warband, and so I was able to base some orcs around around her warband, and then she wasn't able to maneuver the troll around to grab anybody. And the Swan Knights kind of just charged in with Emerald straggling behind. She had no idea how the trebuchet worked, so her deployment and the way she moved her troops was not really cautious. I eventually moved Angborn up into I moved him and his archers up into a Ruin of Osculith to get a good kind of overview of the field and maybe shoot some guys trying to come towards my two board quarters I was working for. Mm-hmm. And then Faramir was kind of marching. He didn't march up, but he moved up with his warband to slow down the other troll chieftain and Sauron. So the next turn goes by, and the Swan Knights, I won priority. I think I won the majority of the priorities. The Swan Knights were able to charge in. Aragorn was able to charge into the troll. I was able to move around, charge into the troll. Because of the way the troll was positioned, my Swan Knights were also able to charge into the troll. So I would think I was able to charge in with Aragorn and then 2 Swan Knights. Mm-hmm. And then a few infantry guys. I was able to, turn before, I was able to kill quite a few infantry guys with Aragorn, his reoccurring might. Did heroic combat. And pretty much just wiped out that. I erased that troll chieftain.
Poor troll.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that goes back to the first point is, the troll chieftain is what, fight 7?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If I had rolled bad for my strike, it'd been like, my leader is in combat with this troll chieftain. But that wasn't even a thought in my mind because of Emerhill being the leader. So I was able to pretty much erase that troll chieftain, and then I started moving Aragorn to my right, so to the west side of the board, with the Swarm Knights following him, and I was going to leave Emerhill and some guys to kind of clean up the rest of that warband. And then Sauron rolled up onto that side, that quadrant, and he started casting magic. He casted a compel on Elisar and moved him kind of back towards him. And
did you fail the resist roll?
I did not resist.
Oh, okay.
Because it was early in the game, and I knew there wasn't really anything she could capitalize on if it went off, and I wanted to save my will for clutch resist later on. If that makes sense.
So I can't remember. You played. Does Sauron, does he get like a free point of will to cast magic, or
he does? Yeah, he does get a free point of will to cast.
Okay, I thought so. So he's basically that's actually kind of a good idea there. If there's nothing really at stake early game, just take the compel and let the game unfold, and then late game when everybody's starting to be tapped out of might will and stuff, to go ahead and have that there to resist. So that's a smart move. And
I knew that, Aragorn already killed the chieftain, so I was like, okay, Aragorn's already on a path of making up his points, so I wasn't too concerned about it. I kept moving Faramir. My goal was to stop the advance of the next troll chieftain with Faramir, and then eventually move around with my knights and Elisar to take out that chieftain as well. And this is on the extreme west side of the board. So I started off on the east side of the board with the Swan Knights, and I had to go to the extreme west side of the board.
Long journey, making the long trek across the board.
And then most of Sauron's warband, Sauron was the only guy that stayed behind. The rest of his warband moved up, and I dropped a rock in the middle of the warband, rolled a 5 for my scatter, mighted up to 6, and killed almost everybody in that warband.
Jeez.
Holy cow!
Not every,
dude.
not, yeah, it was a lot of guys. I actually got that successfully. I got that off twice because I killed the other half of the warband the next turn. But
So you're sitting here dropping guys, and then against a normal army, you'd basically be breaking. But since Sauron negates that, you're sitting here going, "Well, damn it! At some point, I got to go face Sauron."
yeah, well, so that's what happened. So Elisar was right there in Elisar was right in charge range of Aragorn, so I charged him with Aragorn. And are you guys there?
Yeah.
Yep, you're fine.
And I charged Sauron with Aragorn, and I'll let that go for a little bit. Pretty much won the right flank, and was poised to charge with the knights on the left flank with Faramir's warband, and Faramir's a full knight and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I was able to fight Sauron with Aragorn. I won the fight because I rolled a 10 for my strike. I don't think she struck up. And did, I think, 2 wounds to Sauron.
Dang. Okay.
And then that's pretty much the turn. The next turn, I charged Sauron again. I think I called a heroic move with Aragorn just because I didn't want him to get any magic off. And I think she was saving her might for Sauron for his ring.
Mm-hmm.
So I charged him again. The knights actually had just reached the right flank of the troll chieftain on the west side of the board. I guess his left, my right. And then Faramir charged in, picked off a couple guys. I pretty much ignored the troll chieftain, and then did heroic combat, kind of cleaned up, and pretty much was just trying to push the troll chieftain's warband back into a corner. So then I would have board control, all majority of the quadrants.
Mm-hmm.
Next turn of combats, Aragorn does a couple more wounds to Sauron. I roll another 10 for my strike, and which is really lucky.
I'm surprised she's not striking as well.
Yeah, she might have struck one of the. Oh, she did strike this time, and my Elven Blade came in clutch.
Oh, okay. So you guys match 10 then, because Sauron's fight 8, I think.
Yeah, he's really high, and she decided to strike. I think she saw how much damage. She saw a couple times how much damage, like with the trebuchet. She saw how much damage I did, so she kind of reacted to that. And then the same thing with Elisar. She saw how much damage not only did he do to Sauron, but what he was doing to everyone else.
Well, yeah, he went and took a troll chieftain out pretty much.
Yeah, I know. And so she struck up as well, and I went and looked through Sauron. I didn't see anything where he had an Elven Maid-ish weapon, so I don't think he has one.
No, he doesn't, because, elves are the bane of his existence.
Exactly.
His whole purpose of crafting the rings was to try and supplant their power.
And so, yeah, pretty much I won the fight again, and I did enough wounds so that she actually was considered broken. Nice. I think once he's down to like below half life or whatever, half wounds, then his arm is considered broken.
Yeah, I think he's got 5 total, and once you get him down to 2.
And honestly, that was pretty much the game. By that point, the timer had ended. I had pretty much all 4 quadrants locked down. Mm-hmm. She had a couple of guys contesting the one, but I got in the leader wound, and I had officially broken her. So that was a wrap. I think I don't remember how many victory points I earned, but it was pretty big.
7-0 according to what I have written down.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you get many points for the leader wound. Or I think it was just because I got I think it was like, you don't get many points for the leader wound in the breaking in the scenario, I don't think.
Hold on, give me a second. I'm actually pulling. So you had command the battlefield. So, wounding the leader is 1. You broke her and we're unbroken, so that's 2. So that's 3 right there for you. And then if you have more models in a quarter than your opponent, you get 1. And if you have models and your opponent has none, you get 2. So you had a 7-0 victory. One of those victory points.
Oh, it was painting.
Yeah. So you scored at least 3 points for having board quarters. So pretty good.
Yep.
For I know you've got mobility in your army, but your army is more of a shield and spear wall type army with shield wall. So pretty impressive to be able to grab at least half of the board that way.
Well, and that's just kind of a ongoing theme I've noticed with having Emerhill and those knights, is because that's like it's nice to have that because it's a completely separate cav detachment almost. And literally every game I had, I'll go into it later, but every game I had, they pretty much swept across the field and swept into the flank of my opponents.
Well, having Emerhill as your leader, and then having him with 5 very good bodyguards, so to speak, because his bonus, or their +1 to fight value within 3 inches of him, and with 5 of them, you can keep them all within 3 inches easily. And then they're hitting with the lance. They're a high defense. They have armored horses. That's a really powerful, kill squad if you really want it to be that way. You can.
Oh yeah.
Even though he's your leader, so you're not going to be doing like a kill squad like you would with Aragorn. You're still going to be able to go around and you could easily take out minor heroes, medium tier heroes, and just go and kill a whole bunch of troops on edges and stuff. Go seek out elite units, like the tack troll. That's pretty dang awesome that they were able to go out there and help and support with that.
Yeah, and that's kind of what happened is, for example, this game, Emerhill got dehorsed, so then the Aragorn kind of took the knights under his wing and kind of rolled with them for a while.
Yeah, that's pretty good army synergy right there.
And then I was able to keep. I didn't really need my fight bonus fighting the orcs, but I was able to stay within the 12-inch bubble of Emerhill and get my banner.
Yeah, and Aragorn's a banner too, so Aragorn can give banner to those guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because his rule says that your army, all friendly models within 6 inches. So if you're a green ally, or even if you're a yellow ally, you are a friendly model.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So it was a really fun game, and I think it showed what this army could do, and so it made me excited for the next round. But also, I was nervous because I was like, okay, I just won this game in a major way, so I'll be versing somebody else who won their game in a major way. But I'm going to end it right there. It's one of your guys' turn to cover your round.
I actually have one last thing I want to ask about. So you actually played Ashley in the event in October that I did. She's Josh's wife, Josh Paris. Two great people, Josh and Richie, and now Ashley. So 3 great people now from up north. She's still new to the game, but did you see progress in her playing style from October to now? You might not remember or not, but
yeah, I think I did. I think she understood the rules a little bit better, and I think she was better at knowing her army. Yeah,
that's good. So she'll be a force to be reckoned with, along with Josh and Richie in months to come.
Yeah, exactly. I think she did. I did see some improvements.
That's great. And she likes those evil armies, so expect more Sauron.
Exactly.
You want to go, Jason, or you want me to go?
Go ahead, Joe. Let's keep since you guys were teammates. Let's keep the twin teammate vibe going.
I do want to say one more thing. Sauron did kill a Knight of Dalmarth by setting him ablaze.
That's hilarious.
So I versed Richie round 1. Richie Me and Richie were running on a. He beat me the tournament before, and I've beaten him the 2 times we were. So I beat him the first time. He beat me the second time. He's a big goblin player. He likes to play goblins. Seems like he really likes the Watcher in the Water. So round 1, we were playing Maelstrom. He was playing Goblin Town with the Watcher in the Water, Durbers, and a Shatter Shaman, or a Black Shield Shaman.
Yep.
So basically, he had Greena, the Goblin King, 2 or 3 captains. I think maybe actually 3 or 4 captains.
I think
and
there were
those
5 of them.
there were, yeah, I think there were 2. So we rolled. He had to pick first, and he actually just got rid of Hold Ground, which very surprised me, honestly. So he got rid of Hold Ground, and I was in my head. I was like, okay, there's Hold Ground and Command the Battlefield. I think I would have lost both against Richie, just because both of them require numbers. Both of them, he could just spawn goblins on the field, especially Command the Battlefield. He could just spawn goblins on a board corner for the entire game.
Yeah, he had.
So
I don't know if you said it, but he had the scribe too.
He did it. Yes, he did have the scribe. So I decided I would go ahead and get rid of Command the Battlefield. So we played Heirlooms of Ages Past. Heirlooms of Ages Past is a scenario that I don't necessarily enjoy playing, but it was pretty much my only shot, I think, at beating Richie. I could have maybe won Hold Ground, but I would have had to have gotten there first. Would have had to have met his army off the diameter and try and break him and have the game end. But it's kind of thin. So yes, we played Heirlooms of Ages Past. Basically, I moved my entire army. I got lucky. My entire army ran on except for Théoden and Gamling. They did not arrive turn 1, but all my stuff I rolled 4s and 4s and 5s, pretty much my entire dice roll. So everyone was able to deploy on the same side. We deploy, and my guys pretty much were able to run up turn 1 onto the jewels I put down. I kind of put them about 12 inches on so I can move on and move on them in the next turn. He did something very similar. So turn 1, he had like 2 captains that didn't come on. So then the next turn we roll. I think I got priority. Moved one of my guys up. Rolled for the jewel, didn't get it, so pulled it. My next guy moved up on the other jewel, and of course I rolled a 6. It does.
So
I picked up.
Were you you just mounting your guys, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, it did, but it worked out for this guy. He dismounted and was able to pick up the jewel. So, then because I knew that this warband of guys, I think it was Darrowine's warband, or no, it was Dernhelm's and Elfhelm's warband. The guy that was in their warband, he picked it up. So I rolled for Théoden. I rolled a 6. I deployed him next to Dernhelm, and then I moved Gambling on. So that in that case, if he wanted to try and drop the Watcher on that next turn and get that jewel for me, I had heroes that can support. Because his army was far away still. I mean, because he pretty much deployed on the opposite side. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I have the jewel. I was gonna either try and hand it off to Aemir or Dernhelm, because they those 2 heroes I think could survive with it, and so we pretty much just keep moving. I'm moving and shooting. I was trying to wound the Goblin King because it's his leader, so I was unloading payloads of archers into him. I did wound him quite a few times, but he Bloodberry massed out of it. He had to use a might point to get out 1. To save 1, I should say.
I hate to interject. Sorry. Well, I don't mind interjecting because Richie and I actually played round 3, and we had a little talk about that because we were looking at the might table for what you can use might on.
Yeah.
We don't think you can actually we looked at it and we both agreed we don't think that you can use a point of might on the Bloodberry mass rule because
it's not a fate point.
Right, and it's not a fate point. It's not a casting or resisting or anything like that. It's just a special rule, kind of like the Arkenstone for Thror. Like,
Yeah.
if you roll a 3 up, then your fate's good, but you can't mite it to a 4 in order to, save the Arkenstone, I don't think.
Yeah, so, I mean, because I remember I asked you about that during the game, but, because I didn't think you could. Or like, I mean, I could see how you could argue you could, but like specifically Sauron, it says you can use his might to save the 2+ for the ring.
Yeah. Well, and see, so it was actually not even that we were looking for specifically, because we were looking at the Watcher in the Water coming in on that 2+ or 3+.
Oh, you had to might that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're like, I don't think you can mite it because it doesn't say that you can, and it's not one of those rules. And then we're like,
Yeah.
well, since we're talking about it, what about the blubbery, whatever save?
Mm-hmm.
So we came to an agreement. We might be wrong. So if somebody knows and can point out, please do.
There, I would imagine that there'd be FAQs in those, cause those are especially the Goblin King one, because he's a pretty popular hero.
Yeah. Well, I should look then, I guess.
But yeah, so he mighted up, save the wound, whatever. So I'm just gonna kind of fast forward. So we get into combat. The entire time I'm like very hesitant. I'm keeping my heroes. I call it a hero castle. Keeping all my heroes pretty much next to each other because I don't want him to drop the Watcher down and start just piecemealing my heroes. Especially my I knew I had banner points right off the bat, and Théoden and Durnham. So I had 3 heroes I didn't want him to touch because Durnham had the jewel, Théoden's my leader, banner. Aemir I kind of sent off on a little side flank with some riders, but I was actually wanting him to quarter me because once I'm quartered, the game ends. So, we get into combat. Elfhelm killed a goblin with the throwing spear from Doom. The throwing spear of Doom, I should say. And we do fights. I call it death. Do pretty big number of damage. But on the other flank, he almost wipes out Aemir's warband. The little side quest I sent out. That being said, on the other flank, where I charged 2 of his captains with Royal Guard, won the fight and one shot at him. So in one turn, I took off 7 points of might that he had in his list because I killed his captains.
Dang.
And that felt good because I was like, okay, I still have a lot of might left in my army. I still have some plays I can make. So I win. So just imagine we're fighting on the right side of the board. Aemir, I went ahead and pulled his warband back because I didn't think he can hold out any longer.
What board were you guys actually on? Were you on?
We were on the Mordor. It wasn't the Barad.
The
Mordor.
One? Yeah.
Yeah, it was the Orcamp one. So I actually pulled my army back. I called a heroic move and then literally just moved my army 10 inches back. Because the Goblin King wouldn't be able to charge me that next turn, and I did kill one of his bat swarms too, which was a big one. I charged it with Durnhelm, and since it's fight 1, I didn't have to call a strike or anything. I just was able to kill it. So he had 2 bat swarms. I forgot to mention that. So me killing one of them was a big sigh of relief because he can use those to help the Goblin King and the Watcher. And I did not want that to be a thing. Move back. He's starting to panic because the time's starting to wear a little low. I'm getting close to being quartered. And he drops the Watcher down. So he had priority.
Dun, dun,
He dropped the Watcher down next to my hero castle. I basically was able to, and mind you, so there's something I like to call the I don't know, kind of like a mind game you play. I was kind of acting upset that I was losing models, but I wanted to be quartered. I was like, oh man, I can't win a fight to save my life. And he's like, but you just killed all my captains. But I was like, in my head, I was like, yeah, please keep killing my stuff, because he shattered Gambling's banner. Forgot to mention that. He did shatter Gambling's
that damn Shatter Shaman.
Yeah, it hurt. It was pretty much unavoidable. I called a heroic move. I was like, I can't, even if I move Gambling back, which I couldn't because I called a heroic move, he would either stand there and take it, so I just decided to move him forward and charge him into combat. So he did destroy my banner. So I was able to charge his Watcher with every single one of my heroes, except Elfhelm. Elfhelm was fighting the Goblin King, basically. And then
That's a very courageous Elfhelm.
Elfhelm did really good for me this tournament. I will have to elaborate on that. But so I killed his,
for sure.
Yeah, I killed his Watcher. Then the next turn he quartered me. So the game ended. I had neither of us touch each other's leaders. My banner was destroyed. I had the jewel. I didn't break him. I had to kill 9 more models to break him. And I think that I broke. No, he broke me. Was unbroken, and painting bonus.
Yep.
So I think he had 3 or 4 VPs.
Yep,
3. He has 3.
Yeah, I'm looking at the score sheet. It's 7-3 in favor of you. 6 for the like you said, having the relic, and 1 for your painting bonus, and then Richie's 2 for breaking and being unbroken, and 1 for painting bonus.
Yeah, so after the game, I told him if he had gotten Rivera and Luna's Aegis Pass and forced me to play on the other 2 scenarios, I think he would have won. But that being said, he gave me a run from him. There was no point in the game where I was like, I have this in the bag, because he had tools that could take my stuff out. I mean, the Goblin King is pretty scary himself. I had no Elven Blades in my weapon in my army, so that's basically my round 1. Elfhelm. So just tournament all around. Elfhelm and Gambling, 2 models I don't normally take. I do normally take Elfhelm. If I play like 800 points, I'll take Elfhelm, but he's normally the first model to go. Him and Gambling perform quite well for me at this event. Just point that out. But that is my round 1. 7-2, my favor.
7-3.
7-3.
So I have a question for you. Since I think you guys are the only ones who ended up playing heirlooms, did you remember that at the beginning of the turn you have to roll a d6, and if it's like a 1 or a 2 or something like that, then your model's controlled by the enemy?
I actually did not remember
that. That's quite okay. I kind of figured that would end up being the case. One of the most forgotten things, along with the fact that, like in Lords of Battle, when you kill an enemy hero, you get a point of might back.
Yeah, that could have definitely changed the game. But to be fair, I never put Darnhelm on a place where she can get in danger. But that being said, I did forget about the rule. That could have affected it.
That's okay. So, that's up to both of you guys to remember.
Is that a courage test, you said?
It's you have to roll a dice, I think.
Okay, so on a 1 you go insane.
You become commanded.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the scenarios. I had them saved to my computer for printouts. So it's Relic of Power. The relic is a light object. You know, basically at the very end of the thing, it says, at the start of each turn before priority is rolled, roll a d6. On a 1, the model that is carrying the relic is transfixed. So you cannot use might to modify the roll either. It even says that. So you have a 16% chance to be transfixed at the beginning of every turn.
But yeah, it was a good game. Richie, I could tell, I versed him his first tournament ever when he went to Chad's event in 2020, and he's gotten pretty good. He definitely is deceptively good with his some of his decision making with movement and stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I'm very good friends with him. Richie, Josh, and Ashley actually spent the entire weekend at my house. I put them up for the weekend because they're, not trying to put anybody's business out there, but it's tough times for folks. So they were potentially not going to be able to make the event. And so I took some of that financial burden away from traveling to an event by just saying, come, you're going to stay at my house. I will feed you. I will house you. And I'm so glad that they came because they are really great folks to hang out with. I mean, we had a hell of a good time Friday, Saturday night, and half a Sunday morning before they headed home. But yeah, like Joe's saying, Richie and Josh both have become very good at the game very quickly, and they are building up their own, podium awards. We might not hear about them as often since they play more up north in Virginia and Richmond and Middle Virginia area, but they are two very good players.
Yeah. So that was my round one. I will say this. So we've done 2 tournaments, end of 2022, and then we did one at the beginning of this year. So this is our second one this year. And I'll say, because we've been playtesting more, we've been playing a lot more practice games, going to a lot more events, and I'm starting to feel that a rust wear off. So this tournament in particular, there weren't many instances where I'm like, man, I made a bad mistake. Like I'm starting to kind of get that I don't know.
Get that mindset and that edge back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How about you, Jason? How was your round one?
So my round one is probably going to be the least well remembered for me. I hate to say that. So I played Preston, and Preston was playing a Rivendell army that he had Treebeard allied in with. So Treebeard taking the 2 hobbits. Very interesting army. He had a lower model count than even myself.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said at the beginning, I only had 32 models. I was one of the lower model count armies there. And so as a TO, you got to play an army where it's competitive enough to, make you look somewhat competent player to be a TO, but also not overpowering. That's a double negative, but I had, for example, I had been considering taking Rangers of Ithilien because my partner played Rangers of Mirkwood, and we thought it would be pretty iconic or just interesting combo. But I was like, no, yeah. Well, I mean, just you think about it. Like I said, you and Dan both played 2 armies that are green allies with each other. They're historic.
Yep. They're
iconic. So the idea of taking 2 all Ranger armies would have been really cool, but it was going to be one of those things where I didn't think it would be in the spirit of being a TO as well as a player. Of course, that being said, I played an all mounted army, so
yeah. I mean, you took one of the I think probably okay. I'm just gonna put this out there. I think you took one of the troop choices, knight troop choices that a lot of people think is probably one of the worst. The Knights of Minas Tirith.
Yeah, well, and they did pretty darn good for me, as you can attest. Later on.
Yeah, well, they did good because you were able to pair them off with your riders and stuff. That their fight value wasn't as big an issue.
Right. So, I mean, I did notice that a little bit in my 2 in the first game. So, anyway, back to my opponent, Preston. He had Rivendell with Treebeard, like I said. So, his Rivendell force was very hero heavy. Joe and I having 5 and 6 heroes. Myself 5, him 6. Preston blew us away. So outside of Treebeard, he had Glorfindel, Elrond, Círdan, Arwen, Gildor.
Yep.
I think that's it.
Dave Galadriel.
No, he did not have Galadriel.
So he had 6 elf heroes basically.
Plus Treebeard.
Yeah, well 6. Yeah, I mean it's just 6 good heroes. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, and none of those heroes are anyone to really, like Círdan can throw magic around. Gildor gives you 8-inch moving guys. Let's see. We already know what Elrond and Glorfindel can do. They're 2 badass dwarf heroes. Or elf heroes, wow.
Elf Lord.
Yeah, elf lords. And Arwen is no slouch at all to laugh at. So, his model count was only 24. He had he was mostly Noldor exiles, which was good for me because them being defense 3 really helped me out, knowing that the fight value 5 was gonna mean all he had to do was throw a 6. He had a Noldor exile. He had throwing daggers too on a lot of them, and a banner, and then he had some Rivendell warriors, and I think he had. No, I don't think there was any knights. So it's pretty much a foot army outside of Elrond, Arwen, and Glorfindel who were mounted. So we rolled to see who would get to eliminate scenarios, and he eliminated Command the Battlefield. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, darn. I was hoping to play that because I figured with my high mobility army, we could deploy. And with his low model counts, I kind of figured he would probably try to turtle, maybe use might or whatever to get his guys to come into one certain area. But he got rid of that. So I naturally got rid of Heirloom's Aegis Pass because, like you said, Joe, it's probably one of the worst scenarios out there to play.
Yeah, I played it because I had to, basically.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we played Whole Ground.
Yeah, that's pretty scary for that elf hero castle he had going on.
Right. Especially with Treebeard being, someone that can just barge and hurl things around if he gets to the center. So I will say this, Preston is a newer player. So I spent, not to try and talk myself up or anything, I did spend a good portion of the game, giving hints. There were some things he did where he wanted to do a heroic channel, but he didn't realize he had to call it during the movement phase. Didn't affect any outcome, so I was just like, yeah, go ahead. So just know for the future that movement phase heroics, if you need to do a channel, this is when you have to call it. So the long and short of the game was he came in one side of the board, and Treebeard and Elrond, who were solo drops, came in on a adjacent side, so they were kind of together. Arwen was his only warband that didn't come on turn one. For me, Huron and Durnhelm? Yeah, Huron and Durnhelm didn't come in turn one. So I just started matriculating towards the middle of the board. I was playing on the really nice Minas Tirith courtyard board that Dan has. And I was just working my way around the buildings, going towards the center statue, because that's where the center of the board is for Whole Ground. I popped some shots at his Wood Elves, his Noldorian Exiles, because their defense 3 meant my strength 2 bows were wounding them on 5s. I got a couple of kills that way, which was great. Turn 2, his Arwen comes on, and I roll a 2 for Huron. So, speaking for my warband first, I went ahead and mighted it down to a 1 to not come on. Because where he could have potentially put my warband was right behind Treebeard. And I was like, I am not having Huron and 5 knights get hurled around by Treebeard, potentially. He was like, oh, I probably would have just put him over here on this side of the board. So Treebeard is big and scary, but Treebeard only moving 6 inches at a time made it so that it took literally the entire game for him to get in a position to start threatening me. It didn't help that he tried to throw some rocks at me with him too, which actually worked out because he got several kills that way. But I decided that I did not want Huron coming in behind Treebeard. He said he wasn't going to, even if I had let it. But I was like, if I were you, that's what I would have done because it splits up my hero. Plus, you can go in there and rend Huron really easily, kill him, and then I have to be really careful with Aragorn. He's like, oh yeah, I guess I see your point. I said it would be totally up to you, but as a new player, that would be kind of something that I would think about doing with my Treebeard. I wonder if maybe he was a little worried about maybe Huron getting super lucky because Treebeard was his leader since he's a hero of legend.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
So that was something that I'm assuming after the game or after the fact, thinking back about it, maybe that's why he didn't send Huron over on that side. Can't speak for it, obviously, but that would be potentially something. So. He rolled really bad with Arwen and had 1 point of might. I think it was a 3 he rolled. And I was like, do you want to might that? It might have been a 2 because he could have mighted it either up to a 4 or down to a 1. It was one of those ones where it's like, you have your 1 point of might. Do you want to make it so that Arwen's not going to get brought in where I want her brought in? And he's like, no, that's okay. I was like, okay. So I brought Arwen in over next to Aragorn. And Arwen had 3 warriors in her warband. And Aragorn and 5 knights of Minas Tirith said, oh, hey, look, it's my future wife. Let's go kill her. And so that's what I proceeded to do. Now I will say it did take several turns because he did a good job. He won some roll-offs. By the time that I was actually sending Aragorn after Arwen to get into combat, I was losing priority and calling some heroics, and I was also threatening the middle where he had all his heroes. Gildor, Círdan, Glorfindel, Elrond, they were all right there pushing the middle, and I was pushing it with Éomer and Durnhelm and Théoden. I will say that I kept Théoden basically out of the fight as much as possible, and most of my heroes for the first turn or two against his army, I just fed Royal Guard, which I was able to charge so I could have a tied fight value. Yeah, it's a lower chance of winning a roll-off because of their elven-made weapons, but I figured let's see if I can't get a few of these guys. Plus, my two riders, my two Royal Guard that had throwing spears, did a hell of a good job. I think I threw 5 throwing spears that game and killed 3 models, and that wasn't just defense 3 guys. I took out 2 defense 5 Rivendell warriors with them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so one of those times where 4 points in the throwing spears easily made their points over for the entire tournament just in one game. So long story short, I ended up killing Arwen, moved Aragorn and his contingent towards the middle. It was last turn of the game. Treebeard was there in the middle. I went after him with Aragorn and Hurin and tried to courage check with a bunch of, because Treebeard causes terror, with like 5 or 6 knights. And unfortunately for me, even with their courage buff to courage 4, I failed like 4 of them. So I only had like 3 guys in combat outside of Aragorn and Hurin, and one of them is one that he had charged in against. So we did heroic strikes. I did one with Hurin, one with Aragorn, and he did one with what's his name? Treebeard. He got to fight 10, and he was like, "Oh, you're doing 2 heroic strikes." So I was like, "Yeah, the reason is if Aragorn botches it, then I have Hurin to potentially make it so I can get to fight 10. Well, I botched it with both of them, so lucky me. Imagine that, right? So he throws his dice, he gets the 6, he barges and pushes me back 3 inches, which I wasn't really thinking about because I thought maybe he would just go and try and rend Aragorn to get the leader kill. Or at least the leader wound, But he barged, and he's like, I'm trying to push you away from the center. And I was like, oh, smart play, my friend, smart play. So then he rolled into Aragorn. And I think we did that combat, and nothing really came of it. We did we did our final combats. The game ended. So we did the scores, and I had one more guy in the center than he did. And he had 11, I had 12. And if he had killed Aragorn like he was trying to do, then it would have been 11-11. We would have tied for guys in the middle within 6 inches. So that gave me 3 victory points for having more. I had broken him and was unbroken, which gave me, I don't know, what is it, like 2 more on top of that, or 3, I think? I can look it up real quick.
I think it's 3.
I think it's 3 as well. Yeah. 3. And then neither of us had leader wounds. So it was 6-0. And then with painting, it was 7-1 in my favor.
Okay.
So I think probably the highlight of the game was he charged Glorfindel up against Théoden and did a heroic challenge against Théoden.
Yeah, he can. Yep.
Yeah, because he's a valor challenging a legend, and I might have been a little more scared of that happening if it hadn't been for the fact that there was only like 20 minutes left in the game, and I only had 1 point of might left with Théoden. So I was like, why not? Let's just accept the challenge. Maybe I can strike up and go and do some damage to Glorfindel and get really, really lucky and get might back with Théoden. my big thing was like I thought, this will probably take at least 2 turns to kill Théoden. Théoden's not my leader, so I don't care. But it takes Glorfindel out of fighting the rest of my army for 2 turns.
Yeah, and Glorfindel has that same problem that a lot of elf heroes has. Is he has no like hard hit. He has nothing that can actually wound Théoden easily. He needs a 6.
Well, he has what do you call it? Lord of the West. So he's re-rolling a d6 in combat into duel, and then he had Círdan throwing enchanted blades on him. So he was re-rolling all failed wounds. Unfortunately, Círdan, he was able to do that the first turn, and then the second turn I rolled in and killed Círdan, so he couldn't do it after that. But if he had his might point left with Círdan, he's like, oh darn, I could have channeled that, because then it would have re-rolled +1 to wounds, and I was like, yeah, that would have been deadly. But that is my round 1. So all of us scored a major victory, and all of us scored 7 VPs.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of had an effect on how the games matched up for round 2.
Yeah. Dan, you want to go into your round 2?
Yeah. So round 2, I versed one of the armies I was dreading, which was John Stokes' Mirkwood Rangers, a Legendary Legion. And he had, 48 Mirkwood Rangers?
Something like that. John was my partner, and he only had 3 heroes, if I remember correctly.
He had two captains.
Okay, so he had 4 heroes. 2 captains, Legolas and Tauriel.
Yep. So this next round we played was it objective scenarios or unique scenarios.
Yep.
And I actually really wanted to get assassination because I was gonna make LSR my assassin. Anyway, he saw that pretty fast. He vetoed that one, and I vetoed Ill Moot by Moonlight because I didn't want to verse +1 wounding archers.
Yeah, I'm sure that would have been really fun with your Defense 3 Rangers getting shot around on 4s.
Yeah, I decided, I was like, you know what, that's probably
not a good idea.
Probably one I'm going to get rid of. So, we decided to play Fog of War, and my objective was we were playing on the Pelennor Fields border, which is important, and we set up kind of these poker chips as our quote unquote terrain pieces we were going to capture.
Yeah.
Instead of having terrain pieces, which makes sense.
Yeah. So to interject, sorry, Dan. Interject real quick. As the TO, I decided that if anybody were to play Fog of War, it actually came up in the last event for Fog of War where there was a misunderstanding between 2 players, and like one person said one thing and his opponent agreed to him on it for what the terrain pieces were, but he didn't really understand what he was saying. So I decided that if Fog of War was going to be played in this event, which it could have been since I chose the unique scenario pool, that I would give each player 5 poker chips, and they could put them anywhere they wanted on their opponent's side of the field. The reason behind them getting to put them anywhere is it basically puts the onus on them for how they're going to achieve that objective. If they put them all at the back of the board, well, then it's going to be harder for them to go and get them because they're going to have to travel all the way across the board since it's a 12-inch deployment area. And then if they put them all at the front, well, then they're going to have to really push their opponent around to get them away from them at the front. So from what I saw, most people just kind of split them 3 and 2 or 2 and 3 front to back. So that was what I was hoping would happen.
Yeah, that's kind of what I did. I did 3 in the back and then 2 in the front. The one in the front, though, I put beside, I did Mumok, like the Howdah. So it was ample cover. And I put the red ship there because that was the one I was going to go for. So I made that one more distinct. So when I wrote it down, I wrote down the red poker chip.
Yeah, that's what I did too.
That way you also can't forget which one it is.
Yeah. So that one was to my right. I'll go ahead and call that the west side of the board again. So my right is the west, my left is the east, and I put that ship there. I decided to go after one of his captains, the one with the dagger. And then I was going to protect Elisar. And I figured because he had the most wounds, he was not my leader, and might and fate, would be good. So we deploy. John's really scared of my trebuchet, and that's actually this game in particular. The trebuchet did a lot of work, not because it killed a lot of guys. As a matter of fact, I think it only killed one guy, but it made him deploy in such a way that literally his army was so spread out that I could isolate the hero I wanted to kill pretty easily.
So he couldn't support each other with his numbers.
Yeah. And that is the effect of the trebuchet. He even said that. And I think I only really even hit with the trebuchet one time. Maybe 2 times. I only killed one guy with it. But that being said,
Its usage
it had the
is more
effect.
than just offensively,
Yeah, it had the effect I wanted. And so I deployed my trebuchet first. I deployed Ingborn second, who's my smallest warband. I deployed Faramir on the right, and I was going to have him go for the objective and the leader kill. I had Aragorn deployed next to Ingborn, which is where he deployed, which was to my east, and that's where he had Tauriel and Legolas, and a captain. And then I deployed Emerhill, with Faramir, and they were going to make a play for that captain with the dagger. So there was the terrain. The board was there was not a lot of terrain, but the terrain there was 2 Mumoks and the siege tower made it so that I could use those to hide behind and maybe start setting up a bottleneck, which was my goal, and then not take as many casualties in shooting. So turn 1, call a heroic march with Aragorn, march up behind the Mumok so that he couldn't shoot me, or the shots he could shoot me with were going to be in the ways. And I did the same thing with Emerhill and Faramir. I didn't do a march, but I ran my cavalry and Faramir up so that I'd get cover from the other Mumok to my east. And then I moved Faramir's warband up more to the west so that it would cut off the rest of his army and actually have his warband with the leader with the hero I was trying from the army in general. He shoots. Honestly, John's shooting didn't do much. I think it was because I was he was so spread out, and I had a lot of cover, or I had enough cover so that he needed in the ways. And then also, he had to move too because he needed to get to his objective on my board edge. So kind of uneventful. Round 1. Round 2, I actually might have killed the guy in shooting with my trebuchet, but I don't remember. That was kind of eventful, but the effects had already been felt from the trebuchet with this deployment. I moved Emerhill up behind the Howdah. He could shoot at those guys with a couple archers, and he started moving up on his west with Tauriel's warband, but not Tauriel. And I had no idea who he was trying to protect, but hindsight, it's pretty obvious. And then he said, "All right, who are you gonna go ahead and shoot your catapult? Who you're trying to target?" So I did. I shot at the Shot my trebuchet and missed at the captain with the dagger, and so he kind of knew.
That's surprising. I would have.
Yeah.
I would have maybe done like Joe was talking about in round 1 and played a little bit of mind games with him and shot it at the other captain. You know.
Well, I figure I was like, this could be the one hit knockout. That being said, I was in a pretty good position to where I had him cut off already. And he didn't even attempt to move him out of there, surprisingly. One of my horses for one of my Swan Knights, I think he shot one of my horses out, and then he also killed a Minister of the Warrior, I think on Aragorn's side, on the west. But I just took the dismounted Dolomirth guy and parked him on my objective that I was trying to get, and that's where he stood the whole game.
That's convenient.
Yep. And turn 3, I charged out with my cavalry, and I was poised to charge him the next turn. Faramir was also there, so it was Faramir and Imrahil teaming up this time. My warriors were about 2 turns away from getting into combat more towards the west. So they were on the other side of the Mumok, and then I had ran a Fountain Court guard to also hold that objective just because they have bodyguard, and they also had defense 7.
That's smart.
So he with Aragorn's flank, he actually had charged my shield wall and got in combat with like 2 guys against 2 guys. Or 2 guys against 1-on-1, and he had I think he charged 2 guys, so he got the blade. What was it called?
Knife fighter.
Knife fighters. Which I don't think either one of us killed anybody. But then turn 4 or whatever turn we're on, he starts taking Legolas, his other captain's warband, and moving him towards the center. So I kind of knew exactly what objective he was going for. He was going for the objective on my left side, because that's where he was heading. So I pretty much took Aragorn's warband that was just starting to engage and pulled it out of the fight and parked it right in front of that captain's warband. And then I moved Angborn's warband up to kind of fill in the gap of where Aragorn's warband was. At this time, I also was able to charge all of my knights in, and Imrahil. I charged Imrahil in against warriors at first because I wanted to wipe out his numbers on that flank. And I also charged Faramir in against his numbers, and I just planned on striking with Faramir and calling a combat with Imrahil to try and get in against the captain. And I also had a knight that charged the captain, and my knights had pretty much charged I think his whole entire warband was engaged at that point because he had also countercharged me. But I did get my charges off, and I was within 3 inches of most of my knights, which is what I wanted because I wanted to kind of counter his fight 5 guys.
Yeah, you can't counter the elven-made weapons, but being able to get your Swan Knights to fight 5 and having Imrahil and Aragorn as fight 6 can definitely help against that fight value that fight value wall.
Exactly. So in that turn of combats, I struck up with Faramir. He was fighting 3 elves. I knew that pretty much Faramir was just there to kill elves, and then Imrahil was actually going to try to make the play to kill the captain. So I called a combat with Imrahil and was able to successfully kill. I think he was in combat with 2 elves. Successfully kill both of them and then roll into the captain. And then I think I turned that fight into a 1-on-1 because he had charged the captain and with another ranger onto my Swan Knight. And then Faramir also killed all 3 of the guys he was in combat with because I had gotten a successful strike. And having the lance bonus against defense 3 guys is awesome. Needing 3s to wound. Um, so I think I actually deleted his captain there. I think I killed him in one turn with Emerhill.
Yeah, because you can't strike with the captain, so if you struck up, you're automatically higher.
Yeah, I think I don't think I actually struck it with Emerhill.
Well, that's
I think actually I did strike up. I don't think I called a combat. I think I struck up with both Emerhill and Faramir because I think I was able to charge his captain, and he countercharged with the captain and with a couple other guys. I was like, okay, well, it doesn't matter. I'm going to put as many attacks as I need to on the captain. I killed the captain with my first 2 attacks, and then was able to kill the rest of them with the remaining 2 attacks.
nice.
So that warband was really diminished after that fight. The next turn rolled around, and Angborn's flank on the far west was I didn't put Angborn in combat at all because I figured that that's actually probably who he's going for. At least that's who somebody I would have possibly picked. So I actually kept Angborn out of combat and back a little bit. Maybe kept him enough in range so he'd get a couple of guys with a heroic move if I really needed it, but nothing major. So Aragorn went in like a champ, killed a bunch of elves in the center, and I was like, okay, well, this left flank's not looking good. So I actually called a heroic combat and ran over to the left flank and just went back and forth like that the whole game, killing guys. Until towards the end where some reinforcements came, but so I said, okay, I now have one objective in the bag. I have 2 objectives counting my objective, and there's really no way for him to kill any of the guys on my objective. So I need to reinforce Aragorn's flank. So I sent Emerhill and the knights towards the center. And they were actually reinforcing Faramir's warband that at that point had no hero with them. And Faramir and a guy were, I think I left just Faramir trying to kill this last fucking ranger that would not die.
Gotta love it.
And then he did something kind of surprising, but it kind of gave me his hand. He started trying to insta shoot Faramir with Legolas. I was like, aha!
He went after Legolas. Wow.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, so you're trying to kill Faramir. Because I was going to move Faramir with Emerhill. And I was like, oh, you're trying to kill... I was like, why'd you try to shoot Faramir? There's a lot more better options, including horses that you could be going for. And I was like, oh, you must be getting desperate. So I didn't move Faramir. I kept Faramir actually in the back then, just fighting the rest of the remaining warband. And Emerhill and Faramir both are out of might. So even though I successfully got that objective, they did use all their might to make sure that happened. So, I think I might have...
How was his Wood Elf Sentinels performing? Because he had 4 of them. Were they doing anything, or...?
He actually successfully got off a couple of the Wood Elf Sentinels on some of my spear supports. So, like, he was able to pull some rangers out of spear support, and he actually was able to.
A good way to do it.
Yeah, actually versus Wood Elf Sentinels twice in a row, but I think he also successfully pulled a knight into that's actually what he did. So before I initially charged with my knights, he actually was able to pull a Knight of Dol Amroth into a blob of Mirkwood Rangers with the Sentinel and killed him.
Wow!
So I was down a knight, and I didn't get the charge off because he pulled him over with the Sentinel and charged me. So that's actually a really smart move he made.
Those Sentinels are nothing to laugh at. They're kind of expensive for their points, but they have 2 attacks in combat.
Oh yeah, and those, I mean, though that ability to, especially with his round 1, control a model if they fail a courage test is really actually pretty awesome.
You mean who he played in round 1?
Yeah, he played the Boomhawk in round 1, and I heard all about it.
Yep.
It was also that was glorious, I will say. But
As his
anyway,
partner, I was very happy.
yeah. No, I heard that one of the Moonmont players lost, and then John told me that he just wanted to beat him, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. And that makes sense.
Both just kind of interjecting. Both Moonmont players had a tough because David lost this guy in turn 1 to Blackroot Vale Archers, his driver. So I'm not sure, like, because both John and Blackroot Vale Sawyer had enough archers to really pour into that. I mean, Blackroot Vale Archers easily, I think, could get the job done against that guy.
Yeah, I think he tied David. Yeah, he tied round
Yeah, he did
one.
tie.
Or round 2, I
He did.
mean.
He did tie, but just taking that piece off the board is a big testament to the list.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of what John did too in round 1. He shot the Moonmach driver with his even in a maelstrom where his warbands are kind of around the board. He said that he actually rolled really well and was able to get them kind of paired off 2 and 2. So in that first turn when he was shooting at the Moonmach driver, he just had an ungodly amount of shots. And on 3-ups, as long as you're not me rolling for 3-up shoot value, you do really good.
So I'm just gonna go and fast forward. So pretty much Emerhill was able to not get fully in contact with the warband in the center, but enough so that he had to start pulling guys from the center to reinforce Legolas's warband. And Legolas just kind of stood there trying to pop insta shots off into Faramir. So he then was able to whittle down Angborn's warband enough where he's like, all right, I'm gonna go show my hand, and he moved towards the objective that I knew he was going to go for. And at this point, the game was almost over. We almost had timed out, and I knew that he was going to be able to get it. But to add insult to injury, Angborn took one shot, the only archer shot I threw the whole game, and killed the closest guy to the objective.
That's so dirty.
I kept Angborn back the whole time, and I knew that he was going for Faramir, so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to pop a shot off into that ranger, and I killed him. I didn't have to use any might. I didn't have to use any of my might with Angborn to do that.
That's pretty dirty, man.
And then also to kind of flex, I moved Aragorn and his rest of his warband over there, so that if the game that he would see if the game did go one more turn, there's no way he was going to get out of that objective. So the game ended. I killed my target, which was the captain with the dagger. I captured my terrain piece, which was the Moonmach red poker chip, and I did protect Elisar. He didn't take a single wound. He was trying to protect Tariel, which he successfully did. And I do think don't you get points for breaking?
You do.
Yeah, and I think you broke him.
He was broken and I was unbroken, so he got his points for protecting Tariel. I think he was trying to go kill Faramir, and he was trying to go for that objective, and he was not able to counter capture any of those objectives. So that was my round 2. I will say that I was very proud of that game, having to go against that much shooting. Is always kind of worrisome, to say the least.
You scored a perfect score in that round.
Yeah. Yeah, it was tough, man. That was a tough game.
In this situation, a perfect score is 13 points because of painting bonus. So 13-4 was your final victory point total. That's nothing to laugh about.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, especially since John did so good his first round, and he had a really good shooting army. But I'm gonna make a video series coming soon, I think, and it's just gonna go into kind of the making lists that are better than they sound almost. And I think that having 100% bow limit sounds great, but I don't think it'll win you every scenario. As a matter of fact,
definitely not.
As a matter of fact, it might hurt you more than it helps you in some situations.
Oh, absolutely. As somebody who has played Rangers of Ithilien a fair amount, there are definitely a vast amount of scenarios that you struggle. I mean, I have won well more than I have lost with it, as Joe can attest to me shooting his entire Isengard army out from around him. But it's, I don't think, it's kind of a side binge, so cut me off if I go too long. At 1,000 points, those gimmicky armies, and that's what John likes. John likes to play the gimmicky kind of armies, and that's what we talked about as he and I were partners. 1,000 points of Mirkwood Rangers sounds great, but when people are bringing things like Treebeard and Elrond and Gilgalad,
Elisar,
and Imrahil, or Elisar and Théoden and Éomer, and just there are a lot of very good armies there this weekend, and they had a lot of hard hitting. I mean, we had an all monster mash army with a dragon and a Balrog and dwellers and cave trolls and watchers. So that's where those gimmicky armies of, I can hit you with a lot of strength 3 bow shots, and I get extra dice in combat when you have multiple models against me. But if you pop a Watcher in the water on top of it, it's going to whip you with 6 tentacles and kill you on 4s.
So, yeah, and on that note, it's great having, with the Rangers, there's a cool rule, but ultimately they're only defense 3. So fine, you have 2 dice, you're still wounding me on 6s, I'm gonna wound you on 4s if I win the fight.
Yep.
There were plenty of times where he won the fight and still didn't kill, but almost every time I won the fight, I killed the Ranger. And also another thing with that Ranger list is you can't take really any cavalry.
Well, it's kind of like there's kind of like that, like for instance the Helmsguard Legendary Legion, it peaks at lower point values, and I have a feeling that probably the Rangers of Ithilien would peak at probably 700, maybe 800. Anything above that, I would say, is going to struggle. That's just my opinion. Like Helmsguard.
I can tell you that I'm not sure, having not played it. I feel that the peak value for Rangers of Mirkwood is probably in that 700-800 realm. For Rangers of Ithilien, 750 is definitely the peak, because once you get above 750, you've maxed out your warbands for all the Ranger characters, and then you have to start taking captains. And once you start taking captains, you're starting to take away from the Rangers from those Ranger heroes, which is what you really want. So the 700 point area is really where it caps out at.
And that's why I think some Legendary Legions are definitely better than others in terms of what characters you can take, because like Riders of Théoden, you pretty much play the army you would play anyway, like with the hero picks you can take. But but anyway, we got
a great round 1, Dan. Round 2. I mean, hell of a good round 2.
Yeah, we got a really probably this will be a fast round 2 because I versus Jason, so we could cover.
I mean, I alluded to it when I said, we all got major victories with 7 VPs in round 1.
So I versus Jason. I practiced game against Jason last weekend.
Yeah,
and we were both playing our actually. Yeah, both of us played, and it was a close game then. So I knew we'd have a close game just because we're both playing mounted armies. We both had very similar builds. You did have, I think, a little bit of an edge with LSR hero-wise, but I mean, ultimately our troops stacked up.
Yeah, it was.
And honestly, our heroes stacked up because Aemir, Huron, Darrowine, etc.
Yeah, I mean, you had the hero advantage with one more. I mean, honestly, troop-wise, I have a slighter edge with my cheaper troops, I think, when it comes to, I know we were kind of bashing them earlier, but those Knights of Minas Tirith, we were spread out across the entire board. So when you weren't near Théoden and I charged in with my Knights, I was wounding you on 4s where you were wounding me on 6s.
But yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the Knights are just fine. They got lances and stuff. But in terms of being a solid Knight unit, that fight 3 that's kind of what I was saying.
Yeah, I agree. That's their weakness. They are a good. They're not even a good armored cav, because you have Easterling Cataphracts, which are similar point value, but are better for armored cav because they also have armored horses.
Well, even I mean, I guess you're paying for the lance, but even like a Rohan Royal Guard is, I think, only 2 more points.
Yeah, they're one more.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so round 2, we were playing the unique scenarios. I think you got rid of Ilmet by Moonlight.
Yep, I did not want to face your. You had 14 riders, I believe, that were shooting. Plus, you had 15 throwing spears, plus Mister Throwing Spear of Doom, and you had throwing spears on Aomer.
And Darren Helm.
Yeah, I was like, I do not need to sit there for a turn and take throwing spears, which are going to be wounding my guys on, some of them on 4, some of them on 5s. I was like, we're not doing that, so no Ilmet by Moonlight.
And then I got rid of Assassination because I knew I would probably make Amir my assassin. I'd guess. You would probably make Amir or Huron your assassin.
Yeah,
I would guess.
Yeah, probably.
Amir is a little bit more survivable. You could kill. I was like, okay, he has a lot more he can kill easy hero wise, like Alfhelm or Gambling. Those 2 would be relatively easy targets if you were able to get into them. Even if LSR was able to kill him.
Yeah,
so I decided to get rid of that. If I was versing like an infantry army with like some captains or something, I probably would have wanted to play that. But since I was versing your list, I knew what it could do because I versed it already. I was like, okay, Fog of War is good. I like Fog of Wars. Well, used to be, and it probably still is one of my favorite scenarios, just because you dictate your objectives.
Yeah, I think it's probably, and it's a good one too because it's again like you were talking about in round 1. It's one of those mind game things where it's like, okay, what am I going for? What are you going for? How do you get there? And you pick maybe I pick something that is unconventional for what my target's going to be.
So, like Dan, I picked the red poker chip out of the lot. I wanted to kill your Huron. Yeah, I want to kill Huron. I wanted to protect Daemir. And, of course, breaking on breaking. And,
so
you don't get leader.
No leader wounds. So I was going for one of the poker chips in the back corner. From my side of the board, it was the back right. I was trying to kill your Darewine because, like you said, that whole like mind game thing. I figured Gambling would not be a good one to go after because as soon as you saw me sending like Aragorn or Aomer after him, you would just heroic defense me to stalemate. And then Elfhelm, I figured you'd probably be a little more protective, thinking that would be the guy I would go for. And Elfhelm really doesn't want to go fight heroes anyway, so I thought you would try to keep him against troops, which is what you did. So yeah, and then I was protecting Aomer because 3 fate and 3 wounds and defense 7. He's the best hero to defend.
So turn 1, I think I I moved, but I moved to where I can shoot at you. You advanced. You called a heroic march, right, with Aragorn?
I did. So I marched up Aragorn, Dernhelm, and Huron on the right flank, and Théoden kind of came up towards the middle. My Aomer and some riders and a couple Royal Guard pushed the left. You moved up your Théoden and Royal Guards along with Gambling and I think your Aomer, but then no, your Aomer was in the middle. He hadn't swung over that way yet. But you had Darewine and Dernhelm over there on the right flank, and I think you moved, but you moved to be shooting on 5s because you wanted to turn a shooting with all those the riders like we were talking about.
Yep. And so turn 1, I don't think much happened in shooting. Neither of us killed anything.
No, nothing. I mean, there was a lot of like, oh my god, this is going to be close type things, but neither one of us really did. I think one of us might have stolen a fate from one of each other's because of Horse Lord. I can't remember though.
That was so the next turn I did shoot. I shot a Théoden, wounded his horse, and you Horse Lorded out of it.
Yeah, okay, so that was turn 2 because I was pushing through the middle.
And then I kept shooting at him, and every time I was like, okay, this will be the shot I get his horse, and then it was like, no.
Yeah. So we were playing on the I've redone my boards. I used to have just one Mordor board, and it would have some rocky stuff along with some tents. But I gotten a new play mat, so we have the Mortal Orc Camp, which Joe played round 1, and now this one's just Plains of Gorgoroth, which is a bunch of some choke points with some rocky features, some ramps and stuff to kind of put some natural choke points just to split things up. So that's what I'm saying. When I was pushing the middle section, there's an area that's about 3 bases wide that I was going through, which had mountainous, rocky terrain around it. And so we were kind of engulfing around this and pushing each other on the flanks and pushing for the middle.
We do some shooting. I don't think I did anything except for the wound on Thaden's horse. I don't even know if I killed a guy. I don't think I did. I don't think you killed anyone.
I believe you took somebody off their horse at that point, because you did. So after the march, round 2 or turn 2, I repositioned everybody because you wanted to go ahead and I think you moved back on that flank.
I did move back.
Yeah,
I moved back 5 inches.
Yeah, and I had repositioned for a charge for the next turn if you didn't move forward. And I was like, all right, I'm going to take this charge, but next turn I have all my heroes, and you didn't. You moved backwards, which gave me the opportunity to reposition for round 3, for turn 3, to get a charge off.
Because I was really trying to get some of your heroes up, especially Huron, or your non-horse lord heroes like Huron, so the next turn happens, you charge in, you get pretty much, Alistar didn't get into combat, but Durnhelm and Huron did.
Yes.
And I was okay. So this is, my heroes were behind my line. So okay, I'm not gonna sit here and try and fight this battle. So I'll ride off in the center, closer to all my other heroes, so I can support each other. So I kind of abandoned the riders of Rohan that were there, which was fine. I mean, sometimes you got to do that. Because none of them were also in range of Thaden's for his bonuses. So
no, and that's what I was talking about earlier with the whole knights. With the knights charging in, yeah, we're tied fight value, but if I win the fight, then I'm winning you on 4s for those riders.
So you charge in there. I think I charged your Theoden with Amir's Warband.
Amir, I think I don't remember. You charged into the center. Thaden was still protected at that point. And we had kind of been skirmishing on my left flank, your right flank, between your Royal Guard and my Thaden and my Aylmer and some riders.
So some fighting happened. You think you called heroic combats.
I heroic with Durnhelm and Huron to go ahead and start pushing through that flank.
Yeah, you killed those guys. I killed your Royal Guard. I pretty much got your Thaden isolated. But you wiped out my left, basically. And then your Aemir botched it, I want to say.
Yeah, I did a heroic combat against one Royal Guard, won the fight, but then rolled absolute dog trash for wounding. I couldn't even mite it.
So, yeah, because you rolled like a 3.
Yeah, and my whole purpose there was just to, he's not... Aylmer was basically fighting alone with his 5 riders and I think 2 Royal Guard. And why did I do a heroic combat when he's fighting against Cav? Well, our numbers were close, 34 and 32. So I was going to have to make up a couple models in order to get close, an edge towards breaking you. And the best way to do that is with your 3 attack hero. Even if I'm fighting against 1 cavalry model and I can't do knockdowns and everything, I'm still strength 5 on the charge. I'm still fight 5, and I still have 3 dice. So, and I had charged your Royal Guards. So you weren't getting your fight value bonus. I just, bad dice roll that time. That's all.
So I think I don't remember when I killed your Thaden, but I killed him relatively early in the game. Actually, it was like turn 2 of combats or turn 3 of combats.
It was actually closer to the middle of the game because I had him surrounded. I had him protected by his Royal Guard, and then unfortunately I made the foolish mistake of moving him out without realizing how many heroes you had over there, and that's when he used Gambling
and Aemir.
Yep, and you heroic combated with Gambling and Aemir, and see, I had moved first, and then you moved, and I saw what was going to happen, and I was like, oh, well, I just lost Thaden. Shit.
Yeah, so once that happened, that flank kind of crumbled. But Alisar, Dernhelm, and Huron were more than making up for that on the other flank, where I didn't have my support.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually pretty balanced. So those
It was.
with having the three heroes on the right side, and then you pulled your heroes kind of out. I rolled over that right side. You rolled over my right side, with the exception of Aomer. And then the middle, we kind of, like you had middle right on your side, I had middle right on my side. So we kind of just came in and did this whole like middle maneuvering thing where we were bashing lines. So at the very end, all of our heroes were basically there in the middle fighting.
Yeah, so at this point in the game, okay, so Huron was pushing over. Huron was my pick. I saw an opportunity to get like 2 or 3 heroes into him, um, which I did, and then you were able to peel some heroes off.
Yeah, I did heroic combat and sent my ride, which was crazy because I sent my I think riders around and I peeled off Darwine and Elfhelm
Elfhelm.
because you had all three against Huron.
So I didn't do much. I don't think I did. I don't even think I won the fight against Huron that turn. And then, um,
No, and Huron killed Darwine's horse, which is huge.
yeah, killed Darwin's horse. Aemir lost his horse eventually too. And then basically we're just bashing. We're bashing Aemir. Elisar and your Dernhelm are starting to push in the center. I saw an opportunity to try and charge both your heroes. Gambling also was holding fast in the middle. Théoden was in the middle, but I didn't want to put Théoden in a position where he can get one-shotted by Aragorn, so I kind of tried to keep him away.
Yeah, once you took my Théoden out, Gambling and your Théoden basically were controlling that entire side of the board, like I was talking about. And I mean, Aomer was holding his own. He was doing what Aomer does. He's a defense 7,
Yep.
3 attack, 3 wound, 3 fate tank. So he was
Yep.
doing his
Yep.
job.
My I had some royal guard that I was starting to sneak over onto your side of the board to get my objective. And you sent a royal guard over, I think, to try and counter do that.
Yeah, but you had more than me, so you were able to just tie him up by the end and grab the objective.
Yeah. So I think basically the game ended. I mean, it was like honestly probably one of the best games we've had in terms of it just being balanced. It didn't feel like it was like a. It didn't feel like damn it, I didn't get anything off, and you didn't get you didn't have any of those moments except for like that heroic combat. But for the most part, you had.
And so it
Pretty
was
much.
actually it was a very balanced game and kind of how the way it played out. So you broke first, and we saw if that we rolled to see if the game ended the next turn, and it didn't. And during
Yep.
that next turn, it ended up being the last turn, and you broke me. So we were both even for that. And I mean, I lost all but like one priority, and then all but like 4 roll offs. But of course, the critical roll offs that I won were the ones with Aomer, which kept him alive. Because at the end, you had Théoden and 3 Royal Guard fighting Aomer, and all you had to do was win a roll off in two consecutive turns, and you would have probably, if not killed him, at least wounded him and robbed me of victory points. And those were the roll offs I won. I couldn't win a roll off to save my life all game. Couldn't win a priority, but when it really mattered, points wise for scores, I won it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. So I killed.
you ended up sending your Aomer into Huron and killing him.
Yep. Killed Huron. You killed Darwine.
Yep, I did. I killed him after
We
taking
both
off
broke
his
each other.
horse. I was able to charge in and just roll higher and kill him.
Then,
We both got our objectives.
both got objectives and both got broken.
Yep, and we both defended our person because you were defending Aomer. I was defending Aomer.
Yep. So it was like a 11-11 tie, right?
11-11 tie since we both had the scoring or painting VP.
Yeah. So a pretty good round 2 and a very high VP tie.
Yeah,
Didn't hurt.
I will say that was probably, in my opinion, the most fun game that you and I have ever had because we play each other a lot, obviously, because of geography, and that was probably our best game. Like we both were making the right plays. We were making the right moves. We were getting rolls when we really needed them. Even like I say, so just a side note, like don't look at your overall rolls. Like I said, I won one priority. I won 4 roll-offs. But the roll-offs I won were key roll-offs that kept me in the game and kept my points. Because if you had won either of those 2 roll-offs against Amer, you would have won the game.
Yep, I 100% agree. There was I left that game feeling good. It wasn't like dang it. It was more of okay.
It was like, damn, this was a good one.
Yep. And that was honestly how all my games won at this event.
Yeah, I have to say the same thing. It probably that's why it was probably not only my favorite event to do as a TO, but also my favorite to play in.
Yeah, I definitely so I left that game knowing that, and you left because you were in the same boat as I was. We both had wins round 1, and then we had high VP ties round 2. And honestly, in a 3-round event, getting a tie in your middle round's not bad, because it means that you're not going to be having to face the carry upper
guy.
table guys. Yeah. And that takes us in around 3.
Yep. So collectively, right now we're sitting at Dan with 2 major wins, Joe and I both with a major win and a tie.
Yep. A high VP tie, nonetheless.
Agreed. Yeah. So that really helps when it comes to scoring.
Dan, you want to jump into your round 3?
Yeah. So I think my 3rd round would be my hardest round, probably, because of whoever I was going to be versing probably had won their 2 games,
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, they had won both their first 2 games. Todd, who I had versed before, he was playing Thranduil's Halls. He was taking Legolas mounted, Thranduil mounted on the elk, and he had Tariel and a Mirkwood Cav mounted. And we were playing kill scenario.
Yep.
And
yep.
I knew for sure I did not want to verse him in to the death. Just because he had 2 banners in his army. And I also knew that I really didn't feel like versing him in what's the one with the 2 generals?
Contest champions.
Yeah, contest champions. I didn't really feel like versing him in that either, just because Thranduil is going to start off with a higher fight than Emerhill. So we rolled, and he's like, I kind of want to do Contest of Champions, but I rolled higher, so he eliminated to the death, actually, which I was kind of surprised. Just because he had 2 banners.
Yeah, that's 2 VPs.
And then I eliminated the Contest of Champions, so we ended up playing Lords of Battle on the Foreign Os board. And so, kind of like my previous game, I deployed my Trebuchet first.
You were on the Rohan board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not Foreign Os, is it?
No,
it's not.
No, it was the good Rohan board. Snowborn is what I call it.
Yeah, Snowborn. Yeah. So I deployed my Trebuchet first, and he deployed a Legolas's warband, and then I deployed Faramir's warband on the west side of the board. So my right, the Trebuchet was kind of in the center, more towards the west. And then he deployed. Let's see. He deployed.
He just said those 3 heroes.
He had Thranduil, Legolas, Tariel, and a captain.
Okay.
So he deployed Thranduil next, kind of beside Legolas. So I deployed Angborn in between two houses so I could kind of get some shots off. And my goal was to actually kind of take apart Legolas's warband. I felt like I could. He kept saying how many archer shots I had, and plus I had the big trebuchet, the cannon, as I was calling it.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like
The big gun.
I could potentially outshoot him, but that was not my initial goal. I was like, I'm going to do better in combat, I think, for sure, especially with my heroes. But Ingborn's not a close combat guy, so he needs to sit back and shoot. And I was kind of tossing Faramir out there to as like a carrot almost. And he deployed his captain next. No, he deployed Tariel next. And he deployed Tariel literally on the front line, and the whole warband couldn't move back at all because there was a house there. Literally right in front of this house. And so I plopped Aragorn's warband down right in front of that house. And then he put down his captain, who actually, if he had moved out at all, was going to be in line of sight of my archers. Then lastly, I deployed Imrahil's warband, who I deployed right to the left of Elisar, 7 inches away from his Ariel warband. So my goal was literally to piecemeal that warband in the first turn. And Todd deployed in formations. So I also figure, like, hey, this is a good opportunity for the trebuchet to maybe do some work.
Mm-hmm.
So the first run goes off. I win priority. And I charge Aragorn into Tariel because she was in the front of the pack leading the warband. I deployed the rest of his warband. I moved the rest of Aragorn's warband fighting these elves who were actually trapped because of this house. And then I took the other half of his warband and formed a shield wall down the line so that he could not countercharge with his captain's warband. And then I took Imrahil's warband and just ran into the left flank of his Tariel warband. And he started moving up with Thranduil, but he was like 2 or 3 turns away from Tariel's warband. And Legolas sat back and I guess it was going to shoot. And the captain started moving toward Tariel's warband, but Tariel was displaced enough where there's nothing he could do to help her in the first turn. So when in the second round, actually in the first round, we traded shots, and I actually did shoot and kill one of his archers, and he didn't kill anything of mine. In combat, he actually did charge was able to charge his captain in to some random guys.
Uh-huh.
And so that's kind of important. So Aragorn almost kills Tariel. She escapes with 1 wound. I think I rolled kind of crappy on my wound rolls, but I did win the fight because I struck up with my recurring, and I think he did as well, but I got the higher fight. And then Imrahil killed the people he was in combat with and he was able to buff up the fight enough to help me, I think, to help the knights get the kills. And so pretty much by the end of the first turn, I was already up 7-0 in points. Turn 2 rolls around, and Thranduil starts actually charging towards Angborn. So he ignores Tariel, because at this point, Tariel is kind of cut off because of his own guys. His own guys were in the way of that bottleneck, and he could not move anyone to help Tariel's warband. Which I saw dollar signs, I was like, yeah, this is good points I'm going to score here. But he ignored Tariel's warband because of the captain's warband being in the way, and went right for Angborn. So I actually pulled Faramir's warband back a little bit and pulled Faramir in right beside Angborn. warband because I knew that he could potentially call in Nature's Wrath, and Faramir has 3 will to resist it. I had all 3 might still.
All right, sorry.
Um,
What scenario are you playing? I just had a brain fart. You said not Constitution.
Lords of Battle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's why you're seeing dollar signs about killing. So if you kill Tario with Aragorn, you're getting might back. Plus, you're doing all the wounds. Yeah, I got you. Sorry, brain fart.
And another thing that happened in the first round was I actually won the fight against his captain and killed his horse. So I got a point off that.
Oh, is Captain gonna take a horse?
He had a mounted guy. It might have been just a cavalry guy.
Yeah, but I say,
I think he had a cavalry guy in there.
Yeah, Mirkwood Caps can't take.
Okay, there's just a cavalry guy.
Yeah.
I think he had a captain was leading that war band. I guess I got confused, but
He had one. I think he had one, maybe 2 cavalry guys. I can't remember exactly what his list was, but that sounds somewhat correct.
he was actually able to move Tariel back behind some fences. He was able to maneuver her back behind guys and then eventually moved her back behind some fences. I think he didn't really know what to do with her after that because she kind of stood there. And Aragorn and Emerhill both proceeded to slaughtering that warband. I did start moving some of Emerhill's knights around one of the buildings to help with Thranduil. I knew that Faramir would have some problems fighting Thranduil and also Ingborn. So turn 2 rolls around. I moved. That was my moves. He actually was able to charge. This might be turn 3. I think it's turn 3. He's able to charge Thranduil into Ingborn, and he kept Legolas there to shoot. So shooting goes around. He doesn't really do much of anything in terms of kills, but I did land a boulder on his archers. And I think I actually was targeting Legolas, and he didn't have anybody. He didn't have one guy 6 inches away, so he had to put it on the furthest archer away. And I killed all 3 archers, so that was 3 points. So by this time I had a very substantial lead already, and he had not. I think he scored like 2 points. But I was like, you know what? Do not let. A lot of times when people start playing and they start winning like that, I think they kind of coast a little bit. So, like, oh, I'm winning, yada yada yada, and they don't keep their eye. They don't.
That.
Yeah, they don't keep their eye on the prize. Like somebody could turn a game around in a matter of no time. So I kept that in the back of my mind. I kept saying, make the right moves, make the right plays. Don't give him any breathing room. Keep the pressure up with Aragorn and his recurring might.
So what you're saying is that you are either learn from my tale that I told you from my event down in Greenville back in January, where I killed the Iron Hills chariot in assassination with my assassin when I'm winning 7-0 and then proceeded to lose 8-7.
Yeah.
So you learn from my mistake.
Well, stuff like that's happened to me, and I really wanted to win this event. I knew that Todd was also in the rankings, so I was like, he's there for a reason, right? He's there for a reason, so don't count him out.
Yeah, I agree.
So at this point, my Aragorn Emerhill combo is kind of actually trapped because I can take a couple turns and move around this building or finish off his captain's warband. Meanwhile, Thranduil is closing in on my. He already killed Ingborn by this time, and I didn't want Faramir to also die, and so I pulled my Faramir warband back so that I was fighting in a bottleneck, but Faramir was fighting warriors mounted. But Legolas's warband was started to move up because he didn't want any of that shooting shit, and Legolas was still mounted. So turn 4 rolls around. He actually did target one of my siege veterans, or not veterans. He targeted one of my siege engineers and killed one. But I had 3. I had 3 left because I took a spare engineer. or spare
So
siege
that paid
crew.
off right there.
Yep. And then I proceeded to drop a boulder on Legolas, dismounting him and wounding him. I successfully wounded him, but he successfully faded out of it because he would have been instantly killed if he didn't fade out of it. And that knocked him off his horse, and I think it knocked the other I think it knocked both, because he had a cav guy with Legolas, and knocked that guy off as well. And I think I might have killed him.
So I just took I took a look at his list real quick, and he had 4 mounted Mirkwood guys, 4 Mirkwood cavalry guys in his list.
One of them was with Legolas, right?
Yes.
And he had 2. He had 2 with the captain.
Yes, he had 1 with Thranduil, 1 with Legolas, and 2 with the captain. Nobody was with Tauriel.
So then, Tauriel was just kind of standing there, and I was like, you know what, screw it. I charged Tauriel at her barrier with Aragorn, and moved Emerald in. I was able to make enough of room for Emerald to move in and start fighting the captain, his Mirkwood captain. And I had a very strong line there. I pretty much was able to base all the guys that could charge Emerald. So I was like, okay, I'm going to strike here and hopefully kill the captain. And Aragorn did. I won the fight. I rolled in the way rolls for the barrier and actually killed Tauriel just because of the amount of damage I'd done during the first round. And then I got a might point back with Aragorn, who had burned a point of might earlier. I think I used it. I think I did a movement the second round with his recurring, and then used his first might to do a combat. And then Imrahil had burned all 3 of his might doing combats and stuff. I think I needed a dice roll up. I did not want to lose this horse. But Imrahil also killed the captain. I struck up against the captain. I got the might back because of Lords of Battle. Because he reminded me, he's like, "Oh, dude, yeah, this is a scenario we can get might back." I was like, "Oh yeah, thank you."
You know what? I always forget that. And I think
me too.
Me too.
I would have forgotten that until he reminded me. Thranduil honestly was not doing much damage with his warband. I was in enough of a bottleneck. And also he had dismounted Thranduil off the elk to get the Blade Master or whatever it's called. And
the 2 swords or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he did successfully do Terrifying Aura. So I had a lot of bodyguard units in there, and so it wasn't a big deal. Legolas stood up with his guys and started running over, and he literally had like him and 2 archers left, and that was it. And I started moving guys to help fight Legolas. I actually was able to trap Legolas and the guy he was with. My knights had run around the building, ran into one of his cav guys, and ran into just a warrior. And that warrior he had dismounted both my knights. He was able to successfully win the fight and kill 2 horses, 2 different combats in a row. Oh yeah, that kind of sucks.
Absolutely the best possible situation there for him anyway.
But that being said, I had finally broken through the captain's warband. Literally was able to ride right into the rear of Thranduil's warband, surrounding Thranduil's warband with Aragorn and Imrahil and all their troops that they had. Charged Thranduil with Aragorn, killed him, and pretty much mopped the rest of his army up. I killed both of his banners anyway, so I think I doubled his tally of points. He did not win my leader. I killed his leader. He was broken, and I was unbroken.
Yeah, you scored a 11-1 victory. So that's 10 VPs, one for your painting. So that's pretty darn good. I mean, yeah, if you basically achieved everything outside of tripling, which would be the only other 2 VPs you could have scored.
Yeah, I got pretty close to it, but the game ended before I could. I actually came really close to tabling him, which was surprising.
Yeah,
but
I'm really impressed at how well you did. Your dice must have been rolling really hot, I bet.
well, the whole time I was rolling, I was like, the return of the king shall not be denied. The return of the king shall not be denied.
Yeah, so
I'm taking Aragorn.
That's a situation where like I think you and I were playing on like caddy corner tables, and I was just like I was rolling my own. So I had the new Ministerial, the new Rohan dice, and my Ministerial dice were like rolling super hot, and you're like, yeah, they are, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
yours must be doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think Todd was joking. He's like, those must be loaded. I was like, no, they're just Games Workshop dice.
Yeah, that's right. Because I heard him say that, and I was like, I've got the same ones. And then Richie, who I was playing, was like, yeah, all he rolls is 6. And I was like, hey, my Games Workshop dice came from a separate batch of his. That's all I can say.
And Todd, he didn't roll particularly well, but in his defense, but I was very happy with that win. I didn't know, honestly, if I had done enough points, if I had scored enough points throughout the tournament to win the tournament. I guess we can save that for the big reveal of who won first, second, and third. But my big goal was to not leave any doubt in my mind that, hey, I've done tournaments in the past and did fairly well in them, but just was off by a couple points, not being able to get the top 3 at least. And I did not want to leave that up to chance. So I really tried all 3 games to win big, and just kept looking at each opponent as a challenge.
Well, I mean,
and not taking anything for granted.
You scored a perfect game in round 2, and then this one, like we just said, you were only a couple points off. So you had 2 very high-scoring VP games in your last 2 rounds.
Against elves, no doubt.
Yeah. It's just kind of a rising meta is seeing more elf armies.
Anyway, that is my round 3.
Okay. So my round 3. You guys remember we were talking about that fiefdom's army with 15 Black River? Yeah, I versed that.
Oh yeah, the one that shot the other
Moomock.
Yeah, there's Moomock commander off. Yeah. Sawyer.
So I versed Sawyer. I knew right off the bat he had 15 Black Reveal Archers. I asked him, hey, you have 15 Black Reveal Archers? He said yes. I said, okay. I thought about trying to get Contest of Champions up, because where I don't think Théoden can go toe-to-toe with Emerhill, I could do what I've done in the past and let Emerhill fight Éomer while Théoden goes and murks troops.
Good plan.
That was initially what I was going to do, but then I was like, okay, but a lot can go wrong. He has a lot of numbers on me. He can dogpile on me, because they're going to be close. So I opted to actually get rid of that scenario.
Yeah, he had a pretty hoardy army, didn't he?
He did, and his entire army would be in banner range of Emerhill probably, and I just didn't know if I didn't think I had the tools to necessarily go toe to toe with him. Early game, late game, yes. Early game, no. So I got rid of Contest Champions, but I did think about getting rid of Lords of Battle. He got rid of To the Death initially, and I was like, okay, well there goes my banner points I was going to get. So I was hoping to do that, and then he looked at the book and saw that it was 24-inch deployment, and he decided to play To the Death. So he got rid of Lords of Battle because I think he wanted to sit there and shoot at me.
Oh, that's nice.
So
that's nice of you to let him go back like that.
Well, to be fair, It was selfish reasons. I got 2 victory points right off the bat.
Yeah, and I think I heard you saying that to him. You were playing next to me on the Shire board.
Mm-hmm. So turn 1, we deploy. He has his army. He didn't have any foot knights. He had plenty of mounted knights. I called a heroic march with Théoden. Moved Théoden's warband up. Or no, sorry. I didn't call heroic march with Théoden turn 1. But I moved up. He called a heroic shot. He actually didn't do a lot with this first heroic shot he did doing here. He killed like a few horses and maybe a guy. And I actually retaliated and killed like 2 or 3 guys myself with my bow shots. I killed 2 black group archers and a axeman.
Pretty good swap off then. Plus,
Yes,
he loses a point of might, and you got more kills.
So I was like, okay. So in my head, I was like, okay. So I'm winning the shooting battle. Maybe he'll want to move forward. So the next turn, he doesn't move forward. I call heroic march Théoden up on the bridge. Get all my heroes up on the bridge, move up, everything's going good. Then he calls a second heroic shot, shoots Théoden. I horse lord it, fails it. Théoden, I rolled a 1, so he's knocked to the ground. Then I re-rolled it because of expert rider. Roll another 1. He didn't take. Yeah, so Théoden was on his bum, and then he shot and killed subsequently like 5 or 6 guys and killed them.
Law of averages.
So. And this is one of those scenarios for any player out there. Don't ever give up. Even if you have 1 bad turn, don't ever give up. Because I was like, look, he just burned 2 of his points of might. I still outmight him. I knew 1 or 2 good turns of charging and winning fights against him, I'd win. Or be able to retaliate. So, the next turn, I had Durnhelm and Elfhelm stuck behind a rock. And then I decided to just move them forward against his Black Groove archers. Like, he has no more might on that side of the board. If I can get both those heroes into his archers and win fights against him, I can kill 15 guys possibly and break him. So I sent Durnhelm and Elfhelm on that flank. I figured with the 6 might they have and horse lord, I would have spent all the might and fate and stuff needed to stay on my horse.
Did you give supports with riders and stuff? Or were they on their own?
They had 1 rider.
Oh, okay.
Because that was all that was left. That was all that was left.
Okay.
And I've been in scenarios like this before, and I'll talk about it later on. So we lock lines on the bridge. Théoden stands up. Gambling's literally right behind him with the banner at this point. And Éomer is on the ford fighting. And I actually was killing guys with throwing weapons and bows. I was actually still killing guys. Like I was because of the way the board's set up, and it is my own board, and I set it up like this. There are a lot of choke points. I'm not necessarily, we talked about this. I'm not sure if I like it how it's set up because the bridges are narrow. You can't fit 2 40 mil bases on it side by side, which that was a bit of a problem for both of us, and both of us commented on that. So we were fighting a choke point battle at this point. I had my heroes basically fighting in the choke points, and he didn't. So I was coming back killing stuff. Then he sends Emerhel in to fight Éomer. I called a hero, and then I was able to get Durnhelm and Elfhelm into his archers, killing 1 of the archers with Elfhelm's throwing spear, and then charging 2 more. So Elfhelm killed quite a few guys in this game with his throwing spear, and that was just he killed like 3 or 4 guys with throwing spears. And I actually, in general, my throwing spears and my heroes did a lot of work in this game, so I was getting a pretty good amount of kills with them. So we lock lines. I call a heroic. I call death, just to get the strike with Durnhelm, the combat with Gambling, because Gambling was fighting a man at arm on the bridge, and then to get the strike with Éomer. He burns the strike with Emerhil. All that happens. So I win the fight against Emerhil, dehorse him. I knew at this point now there is no way Emerhil can kill Éomer like easily. He's gonna throw a lot of 6s or get some of his knights in there, which he wasn't. His knights were stuck behind his pike line.
You did you? So you and Emerhill struck up. You got the higher fight value, or did you just win a roll off?
He rolled crap to win.
That'll do
and
it.
not to mention, I wounded Emerhill and Emerhell failed all 3 of his fate, and he had no might left because he burned the mites for movements
Are you
in the
serious?
strike. Yes.
That is a calamity. Wow, that's just a hurricane of calamity when it comes to bad for dice rolls.
So at this point, I knew I had 3 points to his 0. He did dehorse Théoden. Théoden had no more fate, so he was very vulnerable. But he was on the bridge fighting troops. And I was getting might back every turn because I had gambling with him at the banner, which is what I talked to you guys about. Because the game against my last game against David, Théoden ran out of might and just died, and I didn't want that to happen again. I at least wanted him to have a fighting chance with a single point of might.
Because if you can get him he's on foot at this point, but you don't really even need to combat with him because of the fact that he comes with a shield. You can sit there and shield having 4 dice and a point of might to strike up higher.
That's exactly what I did. Yeah. I did attack his rider. So he charged with a knight, and I decided to attack him because I needed to break him at this point. So I did actually fight his knight, won the fight, used my might to kill the knight, and then got the might back next turn.
Nice. That's army synergy right there. I mean, that's all that is. That's good synergy coming along. Yeah.
Meanwhile, sorry.
Oh, you're good. Go ahead. I'm done.
Meanwhile, Darrenhelm and Elfhelm are in there. I was rolling 6. I wasn't as worried about Elfhelm or Darrenhelm as much. I was more worried about Elfhelm, but Elfhelm was rolling 6s to win fights. He was rolling 5s. Then Elfhelm would win because he was just ganking him, trapping him with like 5 or 6 guys. I would win the fight, kill, because I was charging, so I'd kill 3 guys. Then Darrenhelm was winning fights, killing 4 guys. So in like 2 or 3 turns of combat with this happening, I almost wiped out his warband of Black River Archers. So the gamble paid off. Sometimes it doesn't, but I knew I had to either take those guys out to try and break him, and I was starting to do a pretty good amount of damage on the flank. My Darrowine died too. I don't think I mentioned that. He was able to charge some knights in and killed Darrowine.
Darrowine was a little bit of a chump for you in 2 games in a row then, because I took him out pretty easily with just riders. Yeah,
well, so again, it's one of those things where when the Gondor War came out, I laughed at Elfhelm's profile. I thought it was crap, but he's actually been like one of the guys that's really worked out for me in his tournament and kind of in general. Like whenever I take him, he does his job.
Yeah. Well, and with 6 heroes, you sent 2 of them on quote unquote suicide missions. They worked out, and then Darrowine, who is a better fighter than Elfhelm, and I wouldn't say he's on par with Darrenhelm, but he's really dang close with his special abilities, failed. So
the
2
defense,
successes to 1 fail is not bad.
Yeah. So he then charges in Angbor. He charges Angbor in and dehorses my Aemir. I decided to keep his fate because I was on foot at this point, and all of his heroes were on foot, and I was like, he's not going to knock me down. So I'll just hold this choke point up with Aemir. Because my riders were actually starting to cross the river. I did lose 3 Royal Guard to drowning, which really sucked. It was in the same turn where he shot and killed a bunch of guys. I lost 3 drowning Royal Guard.
How did they drown?
I rolled 1s.
But you went across the fords?
No, I went across the river. I was just trying to get numbers across.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, and if you roll a 1, even with your +1 value for the horse, I get
-1 for heavy armor, -1 for shield.
Yeah. Okay.
So my riders. So I was starting to cross the river with my riders and kind of enveloping him. At this point, he broke me, and I broke him. Like within a turn of each other, we broke each other. I wounded his leader. I had a banner. He didn't touch. There's probably no way he's going to get to gambling or touch him, but this is pretty much the last turn of the game. Just kind of cliff notes. He charged 4 long into Théoden. This was he probably would have killed him. And then my Aemir and Darrenhelm are still doing their thing on the flank. I mean, at this point, they pretty much wiped out the Black River Archers, and he sent reinforcements to help, and then they killed those reinforcements too. It reminded me in the book.
Those 2 guys are taking down most of his army. Then it seems like.
Yeah, they did a lot of work. Because I remember in the book they were talking about how Elfhelm was riding down the siege crews on the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. And that's kind of what it felt like. Elfhelm was riding down the archers. But last turn he charged. Nothing really happens except for the big fight where he charges Forlong into Thaden. So I did the old strike shield combo. I called heroic strike, got a higher fight than Forlong, then shielded. I rolled a 6, and at that point the game was over. He couldn't get any more points. So the game ended. We were both broken. I wounded his leader, and I had a banner and a painting bonus. So it was a 7-3 victory. I think he broke me and painting bonus. Yeah. So yeah, 7-3. And all right, yeah. So banners 2, breaks 2, leader 1, 5. It might have been 6-3. I don't remember.
Nice. Sounds like a really close game.
Yeah, and considering this was Sawyer's first tournament ever, he literally took me to the edge. Like it took everything I had to beat him. It took all my might. It took death. It took me getting some good charges and getting some hot 6s with Dernhelm Elfhelm combo.
Yeah. Well, Jason, are you ready for your round 3?
Joe, were you quartered?
Yeah, he got points for quartering me.
Okay, so that's where, because I have you guys as 7-6, so it would be 6-5. So 2 for quartering you and 3 for breaking you would be his 5, and then 3 for you breaking him, 1 for wounding his leader, and 2 for the banner.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
No, dude, that's actually a really close game. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was a close. That's it. It was a super close game, and we were both talking. It was like, dude, it was like one of those things where when that shot face happened and 3 more real guard drowned, I was like, dude, how am I gonna pull this one out? Because I was in the same boat as Dan. I didn't want to lose it. I wasn't counting him out, but I knew that as soon as I saw him deploy his warband, redeploy them, they had pretty much an entire quarter of the board covered. I mean, like half the board at least. I knew I was gonna have to eat some casualties. I just didn't know it would be. I didn't know that turn. I didn't know that turn would be that devastating. Basically.
Well, and I think you both have alluded to it. I know Dan did, and I think you said it. Just because you have a bad turn, law averages. They might not play out in the game you're playing where they average out, but in the long run they will. And in this situation, your law averages played out pretty darn evenly, it sounds like. You ate a really bad turn, but then you turned around and took 2 models and went and killed 20 or so, it sounds like. So that's pretty dang good.
It was
good. That's amazing.
It was at least 15. Because I also killed Dernhelm or Dune here.
Plus, you said he sent her supports as well, or
Yeah,
backups.
he sent like a knight and some axemen of the Sarnok, and I killed those guys too. I was focusing his archers because I wanted to get the kills on them.
Yeah,
but if I had,
you're running them on 4, so
yeah, if I had an extra attack, then I'd throw it on the guy. And not to mention, Elfhelm was hot with his spear. He was killing guys too with the throwing spears.
So if he's killing 3 in combat, then he's killing 4 a turn with the throwing spear.
And just my throwing spears in general did a lot of work. So normally I don't take that many throwing spears, but this game I'm glad I did because I would throw Amir into a guy, kill the guy with the spear, and then roll in the Emerhill, or I would throw Royal Guard and kill the guy, then roll into the Knight, because I was wounding most of his stuff on 5s. Because I was also killing his pikemen pretty easily with the throwing spears. We're just killing them. It was like charging, throwing spear, kill, roll into the next guy.
Yeah. Well, so you had 12 Royal Guard with it, 3 regular guys, that's 15, and then 2 heroes. So that's 34 points. I mean, you basically you gave up 2 Royal Guard, and it seems to me like your throwing spears in this game alone made up the killing power that 2 more Royal Guard would have done for the entire tournament.
Yeah, because the 2 Royal Guard probably would have drowned in this last game.
I love the optimism.
But yeah, no, I might take the more throwing spears in the future just because they did so well for me, and honestly they did well for me in our game too, the one me and you had. But
yes.
So there are two models I almost never take, and both of them I kind of attribute to my win. That's Elfhelm and Gambling with the Banner.
Well, and at 1,000 points, those smaller heroes, like you're saying, Elfhelm's usually the first one out under 800. They just really bring that whole synergy thing together. I mean, between Elfhelm's Spear of Doom and the Point of Might plus banner of 6 inches with Gambling, it's nothing to laugh at.
His banner is a 3.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's a 3-inch banner, 3-inch effect. I wish, because it's a it's not a discounted banner, because Boromir's banner was discounted when Armies of Lord of the Rings came out. Gambling's banner was not. It's still 50 points, and so you're paying a premium to get that bonus. And I understand why they nerfed it, because it was pretty dang good. You could just give someone 5 guys 5 points, but that's not always the case. You're not always going to be able to give 3 or 4 heroes might back, but you're still paying a premium. But in that last game, I don't think I got 50. Well, I guess technically 25 points. I did get 25 points worth of might back. I would say.
And don't forget too, it's one of the other bonuses. Yeah, it's been nerfed down to it only gives 1, but it's still a banner. So there's your base points, and then it's a banner that doesn't give you a penalty in combat. So I personally think that's probably worth at least 10 to 15 points. So
yeah, not to mention that, because I think kind of after playing around with armies and stuff, I think taking a banner is, or at least having a banner effect in your army is like a necessity.
Absolutely.
So after playing with this banner, having a hero that can have a banner, and the fact that Gambling can heroic defense and be relatively survivable, I feel like is a pretty strong piece. Especially, he's not the best fighter and stuff, but I just don't know. I'm gonna have to really think in the future Rohan Riders of Thedan list if I take him or Elfhelm. I'll probably take him over Elfhelm, but Elfhelm with that throwing spear also is no laughing matter. So.
Yeah, I agree.
And that is my round 3. So I ended the tournament with 2 major wins and a high VP tie.
No, you had 1 major win, 1 minor win.
One major, one minor.
Nothing to laugh at.
And like I said, that last game took me to the edge. It was one where I had to really bite down on the mouthpiece and just push forward. It couldn't be a because last tournament me and Dan played, I took Riders of Thedan and I didn't do so hot. I didn't want to bring our score down.
Well, and we talked about that, so that was a whole different thing with attrition. So
anyway, Jason, tell us about your round 3.
Sure. So I played Richie with his 97 model Goblin Town alliance with Moria Goblins span. Joe already talked about it round 1. He had, I think, about 5 captains, because I remember him. He had the bases painted to keep up with him. He had a blue one, a red one, a green one, a yellow one, and a silver one. And there might have been another color. So he had 4 or 5 captains, plus the Goblin King, the Scribe, Grinna. There you go. That's it. So yeah, Grinna. So 4 no-name captains in Grinna. Durber, Shadow Shaman, 2 Warbats, the Watcher in the Water, I think 5 archers, and just some like regular goblins. So
yeah, so all around just a pretty scary list with a lot of tricks.
Yeah, if you can get the Goblin King comboed with a Bat Swarm, that's gonna hurt. If you get the Watcher comboed with Bat Swarm, that's gonna hurt. And I know that's the things he likes to do, so I knew that was something I was gonna have to try and avoid if I could. So we roll for scenario decision, and he rolls lower. So naturally, he gets rid of Lords of Battle. And I had a really tough time making the decision. I was very, very, very close. Like, I can't... Like, if it was like a vote of like out of 100, I was like 51% in favor of not playing and 49% in favor of playing Contest of Champions, because I figured the Goblin King versus Aragorn with Elven Made Weapon was all in my favor.
Yeah, for sure it is.
So the one thing that finally was the deciding factor against it was the two things. Well, actually, there's a couple things. The two things we just mentioned with the bat swarms and with the Watcher in the water.
Yep.
So in hindsight, I could have gotten out of it, but I thought if I could take Aragorn and go in there and slaughter the Goblin King in round 1, in turn 1, just straight up charge in there, use a point of might, use whatever to strike up higher, slaughter him with Anduril on, 4s to wound. If I can get the charge off, yeah, he's a monster. I can't knock him prone, but I do get my cav bonus, so I'd have 4 dice to get 4 wounds. If I could do that, I'd burn all the might I needed to do. It wouldn't matter to me. I was willing to fully tap Aragorn to go in and kill the Goblin King in round 1.
Yeah.
But
I think he definitely has the tools to do that, too.
Exactly, because 4 wounds, it ignores the fat save, and he's only got 3 wounds and 1 fate. So if I could do 4 wounds, it's an auto kill. And then after that, I can just go cut the heads off of goblins with Aragorn and easily get a huge victory. But the Watcher in the Water potentially coming up and getting in there with the Goblin King to gank Aragorn on top of a bat swarm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was like, this is too risky. And
it kind of like Aragorn would have to go in there and one-shot him basically for it to work.
Right, and I actually, again, in hindsight, everything's 2020 in hindsight, if not better vision. I realized there's a way around that. Aragorn's a hero legend. The Goblin King is a hero legend. I charge in turn 1 and declare a challenge with a free point of light. And then they are locked in combat. It doesn't matter if the Watcher comes up or not. It doesn't matter if a bat swarm's in there or not. It's mono e mono. There's no way for them to get assistance, and there's no way for them to get out of it.
Yeah, and if he denies the challenge, then he can't call any heroics for probably the duration.
Yep.
For the most part, duration of the game.
Yep. So that would mean that I would have Aragorn, and of course I'd deploy other heroes around him, just heroicing and all over on top of him. He'd have to use his very weak goblin captains in front line. So didn't think about that until after the game. So we ended up playing to the death because I vetoed that. I vetoed Contest of Champions. But there you go, guys. There's something to think about when it comes to deciding on a scenario. If you have a way to, basically get a mono-e-mono without any interruptions, heroic challenge is the way to do that. So we deploy. He deploys in a big, long line. We're playing on the board next to Joe on the smaller Rohan board. I deploy as far up as I can. I figure with my movement and his lack of movement, I can make this take either as long as I want or as short as I want to get into combat. And I decided right off the bat I wanted to fight in the middle of the middle of the board. The way that board is set up, there's a nice opening once you get past. I've got one building that's kind of pushing the middle line, and then it's pretty open. There's some staggered spaces, but if I can get it so that I can engage his line where he's split around that one building and he has the Goblin King isolated on one side or the other, I can swing my heroes and my supports from one side to the other at will and just pick off goblins and Goblin King as need be until the Watcher comes in and probably completely ruins that idea. So that was my game plan, and it actually worked. First turn, he moves up. I stay put. I shoot all my shots. I get 1 kill. I only have 9 archers. Missed with pretty much all of them. And then the one out of 3 got a kill, which is good for me. Next turn, he does a march with one of his goblin captains and brings a whole bunch of them forward, and then sends the Goblin King and no other captain, just a Goblin King. No, he had a captain. I lied. I'm sorry. And the captains and the Goblin King's warband around the outside of that building, which I was trying to get him to break around. And I was like, yes, this is it. This is working. Here we go. I was like, this is where he screws me over and pops the Watcher and completely blows my plan. I'm not sure what Richie's goal was, and I never got a chance to ask him either after the game or later on that night. But he waited until very late in the game to attempt to bring the Watcher on. And then when he did, he failed 2 turns in a row to do so, rolling 2s in both situations. So, to my benefit, him taking so long helped out. So I ended up using Huron, some Riders, and a couple Knights, like 3 or 4 Knights, to hold that flank against the Goblin King. Keep him pinned behind that building, and I also had him pinned behind a crop field, so he was having to send goblins around this large crop field, which took them 2 turns just to get around.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle, I have engaged him with every single hero I possibly can. In the first turn of combats, when I charge in, I call heroics with every single hero over there, including Huron, who's fighting on his lonesome. My thought process being, you know what? If he pops the Watcher, he's going to go after one of 2 things: Huron or Aragorn. If he goes after Huron, then I want to keep Aragorn as far away from him as possible so I can protect Aragorn due to the fact that I'll lose the bonus from Huron. If he goes after Aragorn, well, then I've got Théoden, Durnhelm, and Aylmer right there to back him up. And I was like, yep, I can do that. And then Huron's far away, and I could run him away at any time because I was fighting on the flank. So we fight. Turn 1, I think I killed 25 goblins. Those heroic combats with all 4 of my all 5 of my heroes. I think I killed like 4 or 5 goblins between all 5 of them. Now, to be fair, maybe it's a waste because I was only getting like 1 or 2 kills and then rolling into 1 or 2 kills more with them. But my thought process was I need to win the middle. I need to kill the middle right here, right now. Break the goblins, split them in half. The only thing he had over there were his captains and Grinna. And I killed 2 captains in the first turn. Aragorn walked in and cut the heads off of 2 of the goblin captains. He heroic combated off of 1 into the second one. Yeah. So there goes 4 points of his might. Kind of like what you did, Joe, there against him in round 1.
I actually flash killed as Greenah with a. I killed a captain in Greenah in our game. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and so that I basically did the same thing.
Yeah.
I flash killed 2 of his captains, and then I got a third one the next turn again. So that first turn was really good for me because I charged in. So I had all the dice rolling. It was a 6 fest. I think he killed 1 guy, and it was on the outer flank where I had charged in with Huron and a couple guys, but I couldn't get everybody in, so he charged like 1 or 2 riders that, or what do you call them? Knights that didn't charge. But even in those situations, of those guys that didn't charge, I was getting really hot. Like Dan was saying, round 1, my dice were rolling hot 6s. And then he did a piercing strike he's like, I'm piercing striking at all times. He's like, because if I win, I'm wounding you on at least 5s. And I was like, well, heck, against my Riders of Rohan, you're wounding me on 4s. He's like, yeah, so I'm always doing it. Which worked out really well for me because I'm wounding on 3s or 2s, depending on who is wounding.
Yep.
Knights charging in, strength 3 against defense 3 is a 4. Mm-hmm. And then if he goes down to defense 1 because of piercing strike, it's a 3, plus 1 to wound is a 2. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There were some times where I didn't get it. I will be honest. There were about 5 or 6 times I didn't kill. But other than that, it was a slaughter fest. His Goblin Scribe kept him in the game because by the game's end, I had killed 60-something goblins. And the Goblin Scribe brought in like 55. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, he kept doing that in our game. I was like, "Man, can you stop rolling 11 or 12
right?
with your characters?"
And so he would roll the first time he did it, he rolled exactly what he needed to pass the Goblin Scribes, and then he rolled, it's D3 goblins plus however many points you pass the checkpoint. well, the first time it was like 2. He only got 2 goblins in. I was like, okay, I can do this. And then the second time he got nobody in, and then every time after that it was like 7, 8, 7, 7, 8, 5. I was like, what the hell? I'm trying so hard. So anyway, second turn of combat, he won a heroic move. We both called heroic moves. He won the roll off. He moved to center first, charged all my guys. Shatter Shaman came in, tried to shatter Aragorn's sword. I resisted with 2 points of will. Shatter Shaman was down to 1 will at that point. Since he got the charges off, my killing was not as good, and so I opted not to call any heroic combats that turn. I was also not really in a good position to capitalize on any kills that I potentially got. So I figured I'd just take that turn and do kills and see if I could save my might, because I knew it would be very useful in the coming battle against what still wasn't there yet, the Watcher in the Water, and also the Goblin King, who was just basically picking up and killing one Knight of Minas Tirith or one Rider of Rohan every single turn. And I had pinned him in. I had pinned him in against that building like I had wanted. So I was doing exactly what my plan was, which was split the force up, kill the middle, which had nothing that could contest me because goblins can't do anything to my heroes. And then whenever I needed a guy, swing a rider, swing a royal guard, swing a Minas Tirith guy over there to help back up Huron and his 4 or 5 guys that were holding up essentially 35 models single-handedly. So we get to the third turn of combats. I win the combat. I win the roll-off this time. Charge in. So this is actually a funny caveat. Going back to the second turn, I won every single fight, even though I didn't charge. Richie only rolled 3 times because out of all the combats in the middle, I mean, there's not like there's 50 or 60 of them. I mean, there's like 20 or so because of the big bases of cab. He rolled 3 times because I didn't get a 6 out of 3 fights. Every other fight, even though I didn't charge, I got a 6. And I won every single one of those fights and killed like 35 goblins. Ridiculous. I mean, he's just picking goblins up by the handfuls at that point. And I'm sitting here going, okay, I have a chance to maybe quarter this guy because this is not going to be easy. So then we get to the next turn. I get the movement. I charge in. His right flank, my left, has finally come in and started pushing, which is going to start hurting me in the middle because I have to now draw troops to go over there. I decided just to send troops, no heroes. I wanted to continue to keep my heroes together. And my troops are holding up. So he was, when I would lose the fight, he would kill more often than not. Because of the fact that the piercing strike is putting him at strength 4, he's wounding my knights and my royal guard on 5s, and like I said, the riders are going down on 4s. Didn't lose too many riders. It was mostly the knights and the royal guard that I was losing because I specifically chose them to be on the edges due to the fact that I knew he would need a slightly higher roll if I were to lose. Mm-hmm. So I get movements off. Unfortunately, I couldn't get around. Shatter Shaman once again throws on Aragorn. 1 dices, gets a 6. I've got 1 dice left. I've got 1 will left with Aragorn. I've got all 3 natural points of might left. I've already spent his freebie. I'm sitting here going, okay, I just need a 3. Because I will spend all 3 points of might with Aragorn to keep my sword.
Mm-hmm.
I rolled a 1.
Of course.
Right? What can I do? What can I do? So Aragorn now no longer has a sword. He's taking a -1 penalty to all his combat rolls, and he's taking a -1 penalty to all of his to wound rolls. Didn't really slow him down. Against goblins, no big deal. Against any other army, probably a big deal. I end up taking out a bat swarm, kill the Shatter Shaman, start fighting Durburs, killed the last of it. He basically at this point, the only heroes he has left are Durburs, the Scribe, and the Goblin King. And I've started sending guys over to start working on the Goblin King, and I've broken him. So Watcher finally comes in. Watcher comes in, and Huron is pinned down between the Watcher, the Goblin King, and just a bunch of goblins. Mm-hmm. I had positioned myself now because of the fact that I had broken everything in the middle. I sent Aragorn, Durnhelm, and Aylmer to go fight the Watcher in the Water. Completely passed all my courage checks. I did a strike with Durnhelm. I did a combat with Aragorn. And I think I might have struck with Aylmer as well, just to make sure. So between Aragorn, even with the neg 1 penalty, he's wounding on natural 6s against a defense 6 guy. Between him, Durnhelm, and Aylmer, the Watcher in the Water came into the board, and the Watcher in the Water came off of the board in the same turn. On top of that, I heroic combated off of him and got all 3 of those heroes up against the Goblin King. Proceeded to do an ass load of wounds, which he proceeded to fate out of all of them but 1 with his fat save, and then failed his 1 fate, so I wounded his leader. At that point in the game, he is broken. I am unbroken. I have wounded his leader. Neither of us have a banner. I am sitting on, what is that, a 4-6 victory or something like that? 3. I've wounded his leader. That's 4. No, I'm broken and I broke him and was unbroken. So that's 6 for me at that point.
Oh.
We have about 25 minutes left. I spend the rest of the game keeping Aragorn as far away from the Goblin King as possible, and then watching him fail a boatload of courage checks with courage 2 goblins, and actually kind of, as much as it is being a jerk, kind of hoping that it was enough to quarter him, which unfortunately it wasn't. But then the game ends, and the final score is 6-0 in favor of me. 1 point for wounding his leader, breaking him, and being unbroken. Neither of us are quartered, and neither of us had a banner. So 7-1 final score with the painting bonus for me.
Oh, that's a close game. Very close game.
I can say it was probably my most fun game. And I told Richie afterwards, I was like, Richie, thank you for letting me take out my bloodlust, because it's really nice when I can just sit here and throw nothing but 6s. I mean, and Dan and Joe, you guys have played me enough. You know I never roll hot 6s. There was one turn where I rolled the same 2 dice and rolled trip 6s. I was like, what the hell is going on right now?
It's those GW dice, man.
It was nice, I will say. I was like, dang, so this is what it's like to be a winner and roll 6s.
Yeah, after versing the Goblin King, my opinion of him has not changed. I think that 3+ save is ridiculous. I mean, I hate to be that guy, but
so I
I
did 7 wounds, and he got 6 of them out with the 3+ save.
Yeah, I feel like yeah, sure, he can have a blubbery mess save, but I feel like it should be a 5+, not a 3+. Like, nothing in Lord of the Rings, I mean, SVG is a 3+ save, except for that, and that alone keeps him in pretty much. Well, yeah, but he only has 1 fate. Yeah, he could lose it.
Well, I mean, okay, fair enough. Yeah, well, I mean,
you know,
the Goblin King doesn't really have much going for him, though. He's only defense 5, so even strength 3 bows are wounding him on 5s. I mean, everyone thinks he's kind of scary, which, I mean, I made him scary in my mind, so I wouldn't underestimate him. But he's strength 5, he's defense 5, he's fight 6, which is good, don't get me wrong. He does have strike, but at the end of the day, he's not super crazy.
Well, I think, for me at least, the strength 5 barely tuned weapons, what scares me.
Yes, I mean that's true, but again, he's a minor glass cannon because of the fact that he's defense 5, and they took away a little bit of that with the fat save. I mean, but let's be honest, it seems crazy, but if you roll poorly, that fat save can do absolutely nothing for you.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, Elven made weapons and magic spells ignore it, but geez, I don't know.
I can tell you that in practice games he's had against Josh shot him with like 12 Uruk-hai bow and did like 5 wounds to him or something like that, 5 or 6 wounds, and he was able to fat save out of like 3 of them, and then fate out of the other one. But he took 2 wounds, so now his leader's down to 1 wound, and like he had to go hide him the rest of the game in order to not give up 3 victory points. So it all averages out. I agree. It's a pretty powerful. Maybe a 50-50. Maybe a 50-50.
Yeah, I could see. I would be better with a 50-50 than just a strip 3+.
But
because that's like a warmer 40k. I think Space Marine wearing armor as a 3+ save.
yeah, I don't know, but it was a good game. I'll tell you what, it was a good game. It definitely made me think just to try and plan stuff out so I couldn't get super ganked. But yeah, so I finished 2 major victories and then the big high VP draw with you, Joe, in round 2.
So all around, this is one thing we were talking about. The Carolina Crush was something we kind of invented and used for Nova several years back. And it's basically the premise is you take all mounted heroes, you go and you do as much damage as possible in the first turn or second turn of combat with your, ability to knock down and call heroic combats and try and just do a lot of damage. And it sounds like this event, the Carolina Crush tactic, kind of worked pretty good actually.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's not great all the time, but when it works really well.
Definitely worked this weekend, I think.
Dan, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean the Carolina Crush is kind of what I was going for in my army. Faramir, Emerhill, and Aragorn, and it was good going back to that. Sometimes brute force just works.
I definitely embodied it with the heroes I took. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So I guess we can get into end thoughts. I realize this video, guys, is probably about 3 hours long right now.
Just close to it.
Dan, you want to start with your end thoughts?
I felt like the tournament was really fun.
We got to talk about the placings real quick, actually. Sorry. So, Jason, you're the TO, the tournament organizer. Would you like to talk about the placings?
Right. So, like we all said, we essentially went, undefeated. A tie is a half a win, half a loss, but in the wins-loss columns, it doesn't hurt you. Especially because I know there are some events and places out there that do tournament points over a win-loss column. I do think that the current way that a lot of folks are doing it with the match play guide, they're not doing the old standard of 4 for a major, 3 for a minor, 2 for a draw, 1 for a minor loss, and 0 for a major loss. We are still doing it that way just because it kind of keeps things competitive, I think. You guys agree with that? What do you think?
Yeah, well, after playing that event in Durham with the match play rules, I don't necessarily. I like it better than I thought I would, but I do like the older way. We do it better, probably still.
Yeah, I definitely do.
I feel I just personally feel like the new way is if you get a draw, like it's almost over. Like before, like Joe and I were talking about, like we got a high VP draw, and so with the 4-3-2-1-0 scoreboard, like you're not that far off. You can submarine and come back and push for a podium position. Where with the new way, I think it's like 5 points for a major, and then like there's 2 or 1 for a tie, and I don't even think there's major wins. There's just win, draw, and loss now. I don't remember. I don't have my book in front of me. But anyway, back to scores. None of us lost the game. So Dan, you were actually the only person at the event when we had 18 people. So that's nothing to shy away from. That went undefeated.
Yeah, actually kind of surprising. I mean, I felt like I was going to go in there and just get crapped on, but the list performed really well, and I guess I just I was into it that day.
You were feeling it, man. I mean, you were coming back to Gondor. You were coming back to Minas Tirith. You're coming back to your roots. And at 1,000 points, it gave you the ability to try something slightly different off of your conventional Aragorn Faramir list. And having Imrahil really showed that having those two beat stick heroes, I mean, it's kind of a thing. I know the meta's sort of shifted away from that, but at 1,000 points, you kind of want those two beat stick heroes. And I mean, that's kind of why I took the list that I took, because Éomer and Aragorn are similar. Not the exact same, but very comparable to Imrahil and Aragorn. So, yeah, Dan, you went 3-0. If this was a typical, straight-up event, you're playing mono-y-mono for your own, you would have won the day with your score. I mean, your final score, 3-0, with 3 major victories, gave you 12 tournament points and 31 total victory points. So
yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it's coming from I've played late down the last couple of years. I normally score about half that.
Yeah, so
half the wins, half the tournament points, and half the victory points. So,
well, I know you're very patting yourself on the back about that. So, Joe, your score: 2 wins, no losses, 1 tie. You had 1 major, 1 minor, and the big tie against myself. That puts you at 9 tournament points and 25 victory points. So in a conventional event where you're playing mono-y-mono, you would have scored just out of top 3 with a 4th place finish.
Wow.
So there were 2 players who scored above you. Myself, I had 2 major victories and a tie against Joe. And so my total score was 10 tournament points, 25 victory points. So that's where that whole tournament point starts becoming a tiebreaker between you and I, Joe. So I would have actually scored 2nd place in a straight-up event. The person who edged you out for 3rd was David with his Mumok list. And he went 2-0-1 as well, but his 2 victories were major victories. So he had 10 and 23. If you had scored a major in round 3, you would have had the tiebreaker with him. And you and I would have been looking at what we had given up to find out who the tiebreaker would have been between you and I. So
I see.
But this was not an individual mono-y-mono match. This was a teamed event. So Dan, Joe, brothers playing together under the title of the Southern Scum. Congratulations, great team name. You guys took home a combined record of 5 wins, no losses, 1 tie, 21 total tournament points, 56 total victory points, and that was good enough for 1st place.
yeah, I know. I was really relieved when we got 1st place. You never know until everything's tallied up, but I was hoping we did enough to get the dub.
What you think, Joe?
Yeah. So I was anticipating me and Dan after the tournament was done, like after all 3 of the rounds were done. I was anticipating podium. I didn't know if we were going to get 1st. I know that Dan in particular had a really strong showing all 3 rounds. I know that I had a really strong showing all 3 rounds VP wise. Yeah, I just didn't know. I know a few of the guys that were also in that kind of topper bracket had a loss.
Yes,
or
that's
like
correct.
their teammates had a loss. So I figured we were going to podium. I just didn't know we were going to get 1st. I was kind of surprised.
I mean, again, Dan, huge day. Only one with 3-0. Funny, on the flip side of it, we only had one guy go 0-3. So we had a lot of 2-1s and 1-2s. And the thing was that we had 3 guys with a 2-0-1 record. Myself, David, and you, Joe. Everybody else that was pushing for a top position went 2-1, and the 2nd place team actually had a combined record of 4 wins because both of them went 2 wins, 1 loss. I'll talk more about that in my own video. But for myself, with a 2-0-1 record, my teammate being John, who Dan thoroughly shat on in round 2. Did not have a good round 3 either. But his one victory in the first round was enough to give us a combined record of 3 wins, 2 losses, and a tie for 14 tournament points total, 39 total victory points, and a third place finish. So I did get to bring home some slightly lesser, but also still impressive hardware.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's a good tournament. I mean, that's the best I've done in a while. It might be the best I've done in a tournament in general.
Yeah, I think
really was confident going to each round, but also knowing what I needed to do to win, and not really being scared of my opponent's army, but viewing it the threats they had and kind of seeing how I could counter it with my army.
Yeah, I think Minas Tirith is definitely your best army, and so it's hard to gauge subconscious. But I think subconsciously you probably went into games more confident in yourself because it's your army. I like your Lake Town. I really do. You've been working on it and playing it since 2019. You've really been giving it a go. I just don't think you've had that success. Not because you're bad with it, but more because of the fact that weak defense and only having one hero without a lot of... Like, all the support stuff for Lake Town revolves around that one hero. And I think you like having those other smaller heroes that can do stuff. Like, Faramir is a great support hero because while he's not as hard of a kicker as Aragorn, he's still a hell of a lot better than any tier 2 hero that you have in Lake Town. Hands down.
That's true. Yeah, it's true. And also just the fact that I had Cav and was great because Lake Town don't have that luxury, and my Cav every game came in clutch.
And having strikers outside of just, bard.
Yeah, that too. Having everybody be able to strike allowed me to stand toe to toe against elves.
Yeah,
and be pretty confident about it.
So this is both of y'all's second event already this year, which is huge because last year I think we only had one event each. So this is my third event of the year. I've podiumed in 2 of them now, so I'm happy with myself. What do you guys think? How many more events are we thinking for the year? How many are we gonna try? I think we've already talked about May going up to Richmond Open. What else are we talking about?
For me, I would like to maybe go to 2 or 3 more events this year. I really do like fall and winter events for some reason. That's just kind of my thing. I think summertime. Yeah, summertime for me is a good time to get practice games in. Now, granted, the Richmond Open is in the summer, like early summer, but
yeah,
I'm definitely down. I've already requested time off, so you guys can expect that. Maybe even a journey vlog. But I'd like to maybe save my vacation for trying to do travel to a winter event.
Well, I know there are several of them. I can think of one off the top of my head. Nashville will do one. I think they do one in August. I don't think I'll go to that one, but maybe in December. It's all going to depend on money and stuff. I think for me, May is definitely going to be the one that I'm looking at. And then we have RGS, Ringo South 2023, back after a 1-year hiatus in June. And I know you guys are the primary TOs, and I'm that swing player who drops in and drops out. So hopefully we'll have an even number so I can play. But those are the 2 I'm definitely eyeballing. And then I would like to get one in the fall. I think Greenville is planning on doing another one in September. So they are relatively close at less than 2 hours away. And they have done a great job of coming up to support us. I mean, they brought 5 guys this time to an event. That's
for
great.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. We'll talk about this, I guess, in private. I'll probably keep bringing Rohan out. This is my second first place trophy with them because I think I placed. I placed first at. I forgot the name of the event. It was 2019, one you hosted. Placed second at Chad's event with them. Placed first at this event. They're definitely probably my strongest army. I definitely feel like I'm gonna keep bringing them out. I just don't know. Because I do have a few other armies I'm working on currently that I'd like to also maybe bring out eventually. So
I will say for myself, I'm working on a new army right now.
Well, that's pretty much my end thoughts. I had a really good time, and I can't wait for the next one. You guys can expect more videos of tournaments and stuff. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.